great again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And, of course, welcome back to another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Hope you guys had a great weekend. We've got so much to discuss. So I would just like to go on record, give a correction to something I said this morning. The song WAP is not by Nicki Minaj, it's by Cardi B. I don't know these things. I've just heard it referenced before. Either way, my mom corrected me after the show with Brian over on Badlands. Oh my God, so many emails and exposures coming out of these new Epstein files. My goodness. If I didn't know any better, I'd think they planned it this way, but maybe they did. Thank you very much. If you guys are just coming into the room, do me a favor, hit that like button. Help us out by sharing the show. Really do appreciate it. Hit that thumbs up, whatever it might be. A lot more than just Epstein files, but primarily we're going to be talking Epstein files. There's also a lot of people I see posting things that are not quite right, so I kind of want to set the record straight on some things. My only goal here is to make sure that people just don't go running off half-cocked with things that aren't accurate. Although that's not to say that there aren't a lot of dirty, terrible things in these files. So do me a favor, sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn, because we're going to get into it right about now. All right, my friends, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. Really do appreciate it. As I said, we have so much to discuss with these Epstein files. And with 3 million plus documents, I mean, like, we are probably going to be talking Epstein files for weeks on end. And the wonderful thing is that the DOJ has put it all together in a very neat and easy, tidy package so that you can go through and search for them yourselves. They are on the Justice Department's official website. I will go ahead and pass out the link for the Justice Department Epstein Files webpage. It's very easy. It's justice.gov/Epstein. And it's quite literally everything they have released up until this point. You have to clarify that you are over the age of 18, and then you can search by keyword. You're going to find a lot of documents that will be kind of repeats of other documents. So it may look as if there are more documents related to your search than what there actually are. But what I found is that it tends to be email chains. And so if you have a reference to something at the beginning of an email, and then they continue to reply to that same email chain, and there's 25 replies, then you're going to have 25 relevant responses to what you were searching for. However, there is plenty of good stuff to look at in here. I wanted to say that. And I think that might have something to do with why the records response is so much larger than what a lot of people were thinking. Some surprising people are also not very happy about these Epstein files being released. But the one thing that I can say with certainty is that, once again, President Trump comes up roses. This man is not called the Teflon Don for no reason. He absolutely 100% continues to be exonerated as like the only person in politics, basically, who doesn't have some wayward connection to Jeffrey Epstein. Yes, we all know the old connection between President Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, but it was merely because they were both rich guys living in Palm Beach. President Trump if you don't know, if you're going to be one of those people coming in here and saying Trump's a pedophile, you're a moron, first of all. Second of all, Donald Trump was the only person that I have been able to determine who was in this sphere of influence, who cut Jeffrey Epstein off well before he became a person who had to register as a sex offender. There are a lot of people, and maybe some who are going to surprise you, who continue to have conversations with him. Now, there is a theory, and I may want to subscribe to that theory as to why that might be, but we're probably not going to find that out for some time. So it's kind of something that I've got on the back burner. But in the meantime, let us begin, first of all, by doing a bit. Oh, look at that. It's the official gaydar. Got to turn that off. My intention is to be able to turn this on when I find a gay story, but if for some reason it just keeps turning on every time I go to this view. So let me see. How do I fix this so that it's not just on all the time? Oh, man. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. I really wanted to keep that as a surprise. I had a Don Lemon story. I was going to pull up the gaydar on the Don Lemon story. Anyways, okay. So President Trump is settling his lawsuit with the IRS. This is just one of those stories that tickles me. For one reason, I think it's hilarious that the president of the United States is suing his own government for $10 billion. The thing that kind of chaps my ass about it, I'll be really honest with you, is that we're the ones who are going to end up paying for that. But here's the thing. President Trump is not going to keep that money. He's planning to donate the settlement to charity. We don't know much other than that. He did file this $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS and the Treasury Department last week. And now he has said that he is going to be donating this entire payout to reputable charities. So not the normal charities that you would expect to get donated to. So that money will end up back into your pocket. But this lawsuit obviously is not just President Trump. The $10 billion represents the personal information of many people in his family. Eric, Don Jr., the Trump Organization, President Trump himself. Going back to September 2023, when that former IRS contractor had been working for that agency for the last 2 years, and he took that information, the tax details, not only of President Trump, but of a whole bunch of other people, and he released it to a number of fake news, left-leaning media outlets. Now, Charles Littlejohn, as we reported very recently, just pled guilty. He is going to go to prison. And Littlejohn stole this information related to thousands of people. I guess maybe he's like a champagne socialist or something like that. But he passed that on. President Trump, as far as I know, the Trump Organization is the only group that is suing the IRS and the Treasury Department. Man, I kind of wish my taxes were in there. I would love to sue the IRS and then get a huge payout from them. But I don't know. Hopefully the IRS is not going to be an organization that seeks to gather money from Americans in the very near future. They will become the External Revenue Service, and they'll just collect all the money from the tariffs and whatnot. So anyways, we don't know what the settlement is going to be. We just know that a settlement has been reached, and the IRS is admitting wrongdoing as it is. Warrior Mima says he's probably suing the IRS to set a precedent. I mean, I feel like the precedent is self-evident, but I mean, if that's the case, and then these thousands of other people open up lawsuits against the IRS and the Treasury as a result, I got no problem with that, you know, at least in theory. But again, I just wish my information was in there so I could get a payout. Anyways, we do have new information brought to us by Dr. Mehmet Oz, and who is, of course, the administrator for CDC and Medicaid, as well as the Trump administration. The investigation into fraudulent medical claims has really shown a light which has kind of been obscured because of all of the craziness that's been going on recently. Los Angeles County, it turns out, has a massive amount of alleged medical fraud, and California as a whole accounts for 18% of the total U.S. home health care billing. Nearly 20% of all medical billings for home health care come from the state of California. Recently, Dr. Oz took a trip to L.A., and he did a drive down the street, and he was pointing out all of these Armenian and Russian-owned home health care companies. And, I guess I never really thought about Armenian or Russian mob operating out of L.A., but I suppose they do, in addition to probably cartel-affiliated people as well. But we do have a video clip on this, and we're talking, in terms of like one doctor in LA for a single year. He billed the government $120 million. Now, that represents taking care of 1,900 patients in a single year, but that is highly unlikely. I mean, they're looking at this as a case of fraud. Now, the other aspect of this is that California, or rather, Los Angeles itself, has nearly 2,000 registered hospice agencies. That is more than 36 states combined, and it is 30 times more than the whole state of Florida or New York. Now, we have a lot of elderly people here in the state of Florida, probably a lot more people who need home hospice care. So it's highly unlikely that all of those businesses are legitimate. Now, Dr. Oz, in this clip, he asks, how is that possible? I mean, that simply doesn't make any sense. You've just got too many people in this really small area who are, I guess, all dying all the time, every day.
One doctor billed the government $120 million in a single year, claiming to oversee 1,900 patients. With almost 2,000 hospice agencies, LA County has more than 36 states combined, and 30 times more than either Florida or New York.
18% of the whole country's home health care billing is coming out of Los Angeles County. How is that possible?
And take a look at this map, a cluster of 287 hospice providers in a
Now, this is the area that in the clip, I had it pulled up last week, but we just never got to it because there was so much other stuff going on. But he's driving down the street and he's like, that's a hospice, that's a hospice, that's a hospice. I couldn't believe how many of them there were. And it wasn't like they were in a good neighborhood. I mean, it was exactly what we saw in Minnesota. You've got these industrial parks, Skid Row. You've got places where patients are obviously not going to want to go. And to be fair, you might say, well, these are home hospice cares. These are people who are coming to your house to go ahead and take care of you. Man, if they are making $120 million a year, then they could probably afford some nicer digs. Just going to say.
mile radius, some in strip malls, unmarked buildings, even a wrecking yard and vacant lot.
All of it is.
I know that every time I go to the doctor, I love it when I can visit them at the same time I'm picking my car up out of the impound.
Just paperwork. I could fill that out in Kazakhstan if I want and get a hospice license waiting for me.
Apparently, you can get a hospice license anywhere in the world and then essentially bill the federal government of the United States through California. So the fact that this is just so brazen and blatant and brazen, and nobody had looked into this before. I mean, it just goes to show you. I see it in the chat. Most of the money that is being bled from us in taxes is obviously going to one form of fraud or another. So I can't wait for this to get cleaned up. I'm glad to see that it's happening. Anybody who is looking at what the administration is doing and can't get on board with it, I don't know what to tell you. Hopefully, within a couple of years, you're going to start to see a real measurable difference in your life, and you're going to feel different about it. Miller Biz, I'm glad that you corrected yourself, but Miller Biz says Red Pill 78 News is God. Just kidding. That's right. I am not God. Jesus is Lord, but Zach totally kicks ass. I will accept the latter half of that compliment. Thank you very much for the rant. Also, thank you to Filter Dog, who says, I think I've read all of Marcinko's books. Hope he's not a bad guy. Oh, man, I am so bummed about this one. I got some friends who are former SEALs, and I am hoping to speak with them later tonight about this. But it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good unless Marcinko was working on some other project, but it doesn't seem that way. Judy the Lady Pug, thank you for the cookie. Yeah, Demo Dick, he's also known as, and he's highly respected in the SEALs. So I think that what's coming out in these emails is going to be difficult for a lot of people to reconcile. And I was very careful not to say, Marcinko is trafficking children. I don't know that to be the case. All I can tell you is what is said in these emails, and we'll go through all of them, obviously. Now, Abby Lowell, the lawyer for Hunter Biden, lawyer for a lot of deep state hacks, also now lawyer for Don Lemon. I forgot to mention last week, when Don Lemon was arrested, he briefly resisted. He was approached by, I believe, U.S. Marshals and FBI as he was in a hotel in Los Angeles. It was kind of late at night. I believe it was just shortly after midnight. He was also Jussie Smollett's lawyer, which is very, very appropriate. So Abby Lowell, of course, sat down for an interview with MS Now, formerly MSDNC's Jen Psaki on Friday, and he claimed that Don Lemon thought he was being attacked by right-wingers. He thought that somebody was going to scream out, "This is MAGA country," as they poured bleach on him in the middle of a freezing suburban night. Now, Don thought he was being mugged because he has been controversial, and he actually thought some crazy people on the right might be stalking him. You got to be kidding me. Don Lemon knew exactly what to expect. He went on a live stream. He knew that they had already tried to get indictments against him from 2 different judges. He knew that the DOJ took it to the appeals court. He knew that he was likely to be arrested at any time. So I don't buy that for any moment at all. Don Lemon is facing many years in prison. He was charged with 18 U.S.C. 241. That is conspiracy to deprive rights. That is a very serious charge that the government doesn't charge lightly. And 18 U.S.C. 248, which is the violation of the FACE Act. But of course, it's Los Angeles, so he was released without bail. Now, Lemon's lawyer, Lowell, also, of course, attacked the DOJ for arresting Don Lemon in Los Angeles because, well, you know, that's the city he was in when they happened to get the grand jury indictment. He said that they waited until he was in Los Angeles as opposed to arresting him at home in New York. Well, you know what? I don't care about the inconvenience of Don Lemon's felonious activity getting him arrested where he happens to be at the time that they actually get that indictment. They had been trying for like 9 days at that point. They wanted it to be terrifying. They wanted it to be intimidating. They wanted it to create fear. They waited until 11:30 at night when he returned to his hotel room. Well, you know what? This is another thing. This is why it's so important that ICE and FBI or any of these federal agencies are allowed to arrest people in a courthouse or at their home, because it's going to be a lot simpler. If they would have arrested Don Lemon on the street, they probably would have been mobbed by a bunch of crazy kids with blue hair. But that's not all they did wrong, according to Abby Lowell. A bevy of agents surrounded Lemon and arrested him, and he thought he was under attack. Jussie Smollett claimed the same thing happened to him on the streets of Chicago. But they didn't just take him away. Remember, they didn't just stalk him in Los Angeles. They did it at 11:30 at night, so they knew he'd have to spend a night in jail for no reason whatsoever. They did it on purpose. Forget about pre-dawn raids for January 6th defendants. Forget about battering rams, blasting people's front doors open. They were so kind to these people. That woman I showed you last week, Georgia Fort, they should, by all rights, based upon the type of behavior that federal agents have exhibited in the past when going after people who did not deserve to be indicted, these people deserve to be indicted. These people deserved to have their homes battered open because they refused to open the doors. And Don Lemon could have done some very, very different behavior. But of course, the FBI and whoever it was that arrested him was very, very kind to him. They didn't bust his hotel room open. They knocked. He probably thought it was the bellboy or whoever it was that he slipped a 50 to meet him upstairs after he got back into his room. So anyways, we're not going to watch the video of Abby Lowell because I hate the sound of Jen Psaki's voice. I just thought that that was very funny. Now, I also wanted to show you guys Don Lemon's mugshot because, hell, why wouldn't we? Now, I have to admit, when I first saw this over the weekend, I was like, there's no way. This has got to be AI because we are looking at Don Lemon from a point of view that we never see him. And the only time I ever see him are like the brief clips where he's like self-owning that show up on Twitter. But of course, he gets to set the angle of the camera. People don't look the same when you see them in real life off camera. People say it all the time to me, you look so much taller. And I'm like, well, you never see my legs. What do you expect? So anyways, here is Don Lemon's mugshot. Now, the reason I thought it was AI is because, first of all, it appears to be a Polaroid. So it's kind of off. Like, it doesn't really look like real life. I'm so used to seeing like 4K digital pictures in the modern age. But his head more than anything else, he kind of looks like one of those Peruvian cone-headed beings that they have dug up in the Atacama Desert down in South America. I mean, he does not look like a human being. That head is just so off. And I don't know, maybe it's because of there's some type of flat affect that comes from the Polaroid. You're not getting the depth. But yeah, it doesn't look like Don Lemon to me. This looks totally fake, but it actually is him. And it just goes to show you how easy it is to get confused in our modern age. But I was pleasantly surprised to see Don Lemon wearing the orange jumpsuit that I made sure to include for him, just for shits and giggles, guys. Oh, you know what? I already deleted it. Anyways, here's the gaydar. There we go. Official gayness detected. Don Lemon. There we go. Let me also say thank you to Wounds R Us. Lemon was advertised on the group's flyers ahead of time. Lemon crossed state lines, which is another crime. Maybe a superseding indictment for Don Lemon. I would absolutely love to see that. Denise Ann, good to see you, hon. Does Don Lemon think he's just better than everyone else? He's not subject to the same rules and regulations that the rest of the plebs? What a piece of shit. Yeah, I think that's exactly what it is. Sean Joe, thank you for the can. Moon Baby says, Zach does kick ass. Thanks for the news, RP. Love the show. Thank you for that. I really do appreciate you. All right, but Don Lemon is not happy. Muffin, I feel like Muffin is shitting her pants like right now inside my office because normally it doesn't smell like a turd in here. But yeah. Anyways, Lisa is taking care of some business right now. So anyways, Don Lemon, I hope he had a great night in jail. You know, I mean, if they put him in a cell with anybody else, he probably had some fun. Anyways, we are going to watch this clip. I want to apologize to you in advance. Don Lemon does appear to think that he is far better than any of us plebs. He was doing journalism, and so everything that he did is excusable in his mind. The only question is, will it be excusable in the minds of a jury? I certainly hope not, given all of the information that the DOJ included in their indictment. But you make an excellent point there. I had no idea that he was featured on the group's flyers. That really does seal the deal on the foreknowledge of the conspiracy. And the fact that he crossed state lines, that definitely is going to play into it as well. But Don Lemon appears to have no fear about what's about to happen to him. He says he's not worried in the slightest, and I guess that people are going to his streams and trolling him, which I find to be pretty hilarious.
Republicans better wake up. A dictator doesn't need Congress. Thank you very much, Don Stanley.
I'll tell you what, I don't think we need Congress either, because they're totally ineffective. We talked about this in so many occasions. Government's about to be shut down right now. They haven't passed the SAVE Act. They haven't fixed the elections. They haven't been able to confirm President Trump's picks for all of these positions. What are they here for other than to make themselves rich? And, of course, to reap the benefits of holding a high-level position in elected government? I don't know. I really can't tell you. Some of them I like. Some of them I think are there for the right reasons. Plenty of them, I don't think they are. But yeah, that doesn't mean that President Trump is a king. If he was a king, if he wanted to rule by decree, we would be living in a very, very different world. But that's obviously not what's happening. These people are empty. They are vapid. They have nothing. And so, of course, they have to fall back on these same tired old tropes.
Right on to you. Right on to you. I think people think that I see that there are some trolls in the comments. I think people think like I'm really scared. I am not. And you don't even know the experience that I've had over the last couple of days. And I will talk about them at some point, and I'll see.
Oh, I can't wait to hear about his experience. I hope that when he went to jail, people were horrible to him. And I feel terrible saying that, but I wish that for Don Lemon. I really wish that for you, sister.
Maybe it's sooner than later, but we'll see. But it was.
I also don't think he realizes how serious both of these charges are. The Enforcement Act made to take down the KKK, and then the FACE Act made to take down abortion protesters. I mean, Don, like these are serious charges, bro. And the facts of the indictment have really got you in a bind. Like, you are in a bad light. Everything that was needed to prove the crimes you committed, you gave them because you're a narcissist. Because even though you got fired from CNN, you are clinging to the idea that you're a journalist, but you're just not. I mean, you're a propagandist.
Isn't at all what I expected in many ways. And as a journalist, it was quite a learning experience, taking many, many, many notes. And so when you're in,
yeah, he hasn't been held accountable. Remember that guy that you sexually assaulted, Don? Whatever happened with that? I'm pretty sure he just like paid that guy off.
Certain positions you have to think about. I think as a journalist, I always think about what's the positive experience in this. What do I do? And I sort of take notes, mental notes. If I have a device or whatever, I'll say something into it. But I have so many thoughts. And what this did was really open my eyes to a lot. So if you think that I was outspoken before.
Cordy G over on YouTube says, I was one of those trolls. I was one of those trolls. I love it, bro.
This.
That's his diabolical laughter because he thinks nothing's going to happen to him.
Just wait. So I know that there are people who think like, oh, do this and, that I'm going to be locked up or whatever. I ain't worried about that. You heard the truth and the truth shall make you free. I ain't even worried about that. Like, not. Don't even think about it. So whatever.
He was making that sound all weekend in jail. All right. Now, Attorney General Pam Bondi also wants everybody to know that 2 additional agitators from that church protest insurrection have now also been arrested for storming that church. Now, instead of condemning the mob's conduct or defending the constitutional right to religious assembly, Don Lemon chose to insert himself into the process. He live streamed the scene. He aggressively confronted people, and he even admitted that the reason they were there was to make people feel uncomfortable as they were trying to worship, as they were in a house of God. This is the beginning of what's going to happen here. Don Lemon cackled into the camera. But he's being arrested. Traherne Jean Cruz has been arrested. Jamail Lindell Lundy has been arrested. Georgia Fort has been arrested. And now we have 2 additional people who have been arrested. Now, we have made 2 more arrests. Their names are Ian Davis Austin and Jerome D'Angelo Richardson. I haven't seen any photographs of them having been released yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing that. Now, we also have news from ICE that over the weekend, a clandestine operation in West Virginia led to the arrest of 650 illegal aliens. Now, this was done expressly with the cooperation of local law enforcement via the 287G program. Per those arrested by ICE, many of those people have convictions for child sex abuse, drug possession, and endangering the welfare of children. Let's take a look at the actual press release. So from January 5th to January 19th, ICE Philadelphia staged a statewide surge with 14 of their 287G partners in West Virginia, which resulted in these 650 illegal alien arrests, very serious criminal histories. ICE Philadelphia deployed surge teams to Martinsburg, Moorfield, Morgantown, Beckley, Huntington, and Charleston as part of this operation. Together, federal, state, and local law enforcement officials identified and arrested hundreds of illegal aliens who were present dangers to national security and risks to public safety, as well as those who entered the United States illegally or otherwise undermined the integrity of U.S. immigration laws and border control efforts. Direct quote from ICE. This operation demonstrates how strong partnerships between ICE and West Virginia law enforcement agencies enhance public safety and the integrity of our immigration system. This was the ERO Philadelphia Acting Field Office Director Michael Rose. By training and supporting our 287G partners across the state, we've expanded local capacity to identify, arrest, and process illegal aliens while ensuring those authorities are exercised professionally and consistently with the law. You guys, before we continue with the next story, I do have to mention the sponsor of today's program. That's going to be my friends over there at Brightcore. Make sure you check out the link down below, and I'll be right back. For decades, our dietary guidelines have told Americans the same tired old story. Low fat, low salt, eat less. While at the same time, the food supply was quietly being filled with seed oils, chemical additives, and a lot of ultra-processed junk that was engineered to hijack your biology. Well, RFK Jr. and HHS have finally released some new dietary guidelines, and for the very first time, the federal government is finally admitting the truth. Bad food is what is driving chronic disease, while kimchi is finally being recognized for its gut health benefits. I just love the fact that this new food pyramid is inverted because it's flipping everything on its head. These new guidelines pull America back to real food, while warning against the foods that are destroying us. Because real damage isn't always visible. The problem is the damage that occurs underneath. The inflammation, the blood sugar instability, hormone disruption, metabolic dysfunction. And RFK isn't just talking about this, he lives it.
Mainly meat and then fermented vegetable, anything fermented. So a lot of kimchi and all kinds of fermented vegetables. And it's really, I would say it's dramatically changed my, everything.
But the only issue is kimchi is not easy to eat every day. So now you can get all of the benefits of kimchi in a convenient daily capsule from Kimchi 1. Kimchi 1 helps restore what modern food destroys, delivering kimchi's unique probiotic strains to strengthen your gut barrier, flush out the toxins, and reduce body fat. In a world built on fake food, give your gut real protection. And today you can get an exclusive offer by clicking the link below for 25% off your entire order. Or to get an even better deal, call my friends at Brightcore for up to 50% off your order and get free shipping. So give them a call now at 888-383-5996. Once again, that's 888-383-5996. And thank you so much to Brightcore for sponsoring this program. All right, and the program is also brought to you by our friends over here at Rumble. You guys, if you are a parent or a grandparent, here's some real talk for a very quick second. America is about to hit a huge milestone. We're going to be celebrating all day. Coming up on America's 250th birthday. That is 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-governance the world has ever seen. So this is the perfect moment to help your kids or grandkids understand why this country matters. It's not just about fireworks or hot dogs. You got to understand the story behind it all. So there is a free guide called The Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday. And honestly, it's a great way to introduce your kids to how America began, who the founding fathers were, what they risked, why the ideas they fought for are still relevant today. Now, this guide sends kids back to the moment those brave men signed the Declaration of Independence, knowing full well they were risking their lives for freedom. It breaks it all down in a way that kids can actually understand and enjoy without watering it down or turning it into boring schoolwork. So if you care about raising your children to know who this country is founded for, where it came from, and why it's worth preserving, this is something you're going to want to grab. And the best part, it's completely free with this special offer. All you do is pay $2 for shipping and handling. So head on over to free250guide.com. Once again, that is free250guide.com. And the Kid's Guide to America's 250th Birthday is yours for your kids today. America's story matters. Make sure the next generation knows it. All right. Thank you very much to the good folks over at Rumble and free250guide.com. Let us jump right back into the next segment. And this is the official FAFO segment of today's program. There were disturbances all weekend from Minneapolis to Los Angeles to Arizona. It was going on the entire time. And I have to think it might have had something to do with these Epstein files being released, because when they hit the internet, boom, it was explosive. So As you know, there were a number of schools that were engaging in protests over the weekend. Some of them were led by kids. Some of them were actually led by the schools themselves. But at least 3 teenagers were arrested for assault in Arizona during this particular anti-ICE school walkout, which took place on Friday. You had 2 middle schoolers from Poston Junior High in Mesa, Arizona. They were detained after they were seen throwing objects at officers. One of them was reportedly booked at the Durango Juvenile Detention Center, and the other was released with a referral to the Maricopa County Juvenile Court. So we've gotten body cam footage from one of the arrests, and it shows an officer pulling up to a girl on his motorcycle, throwing her to the ground, and slapping on the cuffs as she appears to resist. But the video also shows the girl running into the street and throwing her water bottle at the officer as he drives past. So make no mistake, the reason he engaged in the behavior he did was a response to what she initiated. So let me just get past this brief commercial right here. Thank you so much to CyberXpeed, who says, where did you get your standing desk? I ordered it online. It was from a company called Fully, and I don't think they exist anymore. But you might be able to find them. Actually, you know what?
Tonight.
I think they were purchased by Herman Miller. So they're available on Herman Miller's website. They may not be the best one now. But I got it for a really good price, and that's why I purchased it. I had like a coupon, and there was an additional sale that was going on. But I'm trying to think. I've seen either way. Just look for standing desk, best standing desk in the search engine of your choice, and you'll probably find a couple of different brands, and then you can compare them and buy based on your budget, or see if they have any sales coming up. That's really how I buy everything. I try to find the best price that I can. All right, so let's take a look at this body camera footage, and we can see how this all played out.
New video tonight from the Mesa Police Department. It shows the takedown of what appears to be a student protester during a school walkout on Friday. Here it is, edited by Mesa Police. The video posted on the department's Facebook page. According to Mesa Police, during a walkout at Poston Junior High School, students entered the roadway and threw water bottles at officers. The girl in the video is facing charges of aggravated assault. Mesa police say another student was also arrested for throwing items, but has been released to the juvenile court system. The police also posted a statement about this, saying they respect the right to peacefully protest, but they will not tolerate criminal behavior or violence toward officers or anyone in the community.
Yeah, it's just not something you can do. Protest is one thing. That is protected under the First Amendment. Rioting, assault, those things are not protected. You cannot behave in that way. Now, this is the actual protest as it began. It was simply a walkout. You had these all across the country over the weekend. If I had to guess, every single one of them was probably organized with the help of the teachers union.
Tonight, we're bringing you team coverage, taking a look at the impact ICE's immigration operations are having here in Arizona, with thousands of students walking out of class.
Oh, yeah, you see this giant building right there? This is the reason they were protesting in Mesa, because the Trump administration just purchased this massive warehouse, which they are turning into a detention center to better help alleviate the strain on the existing system, because we have so many people we need to deport.
Class today as part of a nationwide ICE out protest.
Along with mixed reactions out of the West Valley after reports of ICE purchasing a massive warehouse in Surprise that could be used to detain people. Thanks for.
And it will, just FYI.
Joining us for 12 News at 10, I'm Kariba Devine.
I'm Mark Curtis. A nationwide strike took place today, calling for a day of no school, work, or shopping as a way to protest ICE and its enforcement practices. Here in the Valley, Sky 12 was over several large walkouts and protests as crowds of people demanded an end to immigration enforcement in Arizona.
Yeah, well, obviously that's not going to happen, boys and girls. What you are going to see likely is a bunch of vapid, uninformed young minds who have been brainwashed by people who don't want laws enforced so that they won't lose their edge at the elections. They don't want their pipelines of NGO money to shut down. They don't want their ballot harvesting mules to go away. They want to be able to hold on to whatever thin strands of power they still possess. Now, it was a little bit worse in Minneapolis. And as you are aware, we've had a number of Antifa no-go zones that seem to get set up every time there are mass protests. In fact, if you remember the CHOP in Seattle, also renamed the Chaz, there was a young man who lost his life as a result of that being set up. The father of that young man just won a $10 million settlement from the city of Seattle because as a result of that zone getting set up, the police were unable to get into there and help that young man before he died from a gunshot wound that he received as a result of these crazy leftist agitators. So we had insurgents in Minneapolis barricading several streets. They were calling it an ice filter. They basically had checkpoints like the Gestapo or the East German police stopping cars, checking their IDs. They were running license plates. You know, I know of at least one sheriff's department that's been providing that service to Antifa, but they were not necessarily successful with stopping people from getting deported because all of that remained ongoing. Let me say thank you to CL Goober for grabbing that 3-month subscription given to you by my good friend Sean Joe. Also, Sean Joe, thank you for 3 cans. Thank you for that, buddy. Appreciate you. So Minneapolis Crime Watch is a great account. I follow them myself, and they posted these photos yesterday from this neighborhood ice block party with details on the location and a plea for local government to do something. The cops were essentially useless in Minneapolis. So you can see here, this was 32nd to 34th and Cedar Avenue, and the entire street was just blocked off by these radical leftist terrorists. F-ICE, no honking, P12, I don't know what that means. It's something to do with police and not liking them. They've got these barriers set up. I mean, my question obviously is, what do you do when you live in one of these neighborhoods? I mean, some people they were allowing to go through. Other people, they were forcing them to take the long way around. But if you're on the blocks that they're actively blocking and they refuse to let you in, you've really got nothing that you can do to get help because the police are not doing anything to help. This is directly from the scene yesterday.
We just actually spoke to some of the individuals, if you want to just check out here, wearing the kind of black block covering their faces. They have this kind of blockade here where they're stopping some vehicles. Actually, Eric, if you could point down there, they're actually stopping this vehicle and they check the out-of-state plates just to see if they're ICE.
Papers, please? Can I see your papers, sir?
And what's interesting is just moments ago, down there, we have an Uber driver. He's from Somalia. He's clearly not ICE. And they said that in their database that vehicle was popping up as an ICE vehicle. So we were questioning them about this database that they're using. Obviously, there's some type of network or communication. According to them, local law enforcement hasn't even came in and stopped. So Eric, just kind of shoot some of this and check it out. They're on the phones. I guess they were checking the license plate. We heard on their walkie-talkie that the license plate that they ran.
Yes, literal checkpoints in Minneapolis set up by Antifa. Now, another account called Minneapolis Spring posted this video with another checkpoint that was being filmed. These people have been checked. They are cleared for entry to the zone. Oh, my gosh. All right. Now, Karlin Borisenko shared this and said Antifa in Minneapolis is literally building checkpoints and stopping vehicles on the road to run their license plates and see if they're affiliated with ICE before they let them go. Here, Minneapolis Spring says, watch, community defenders is what they call them. Community defenders stop an out-of-state vehicle at the filter blockade. They are able to run the plate through a database and confirm whether the vehicle is affiliated with abductors before letting it through. This is how we keep our streets safe. These people are evil. Now, here is a flyer that they posted. Get outside. Join the anti-ice filter blockade at 34th and Cedar. We need barricade materials, fireworks, signs and art materials, and most importantly, you. So come on out and block the ice vehicles with us. And, of course, I don't think that they have left the scene. I mean, they were set up for the long haul. You can see here they've got fire pits and all of that stuff. This is shocking, or maybe not. This is the Minneapolis police essentially abdicating their responsibility and asking politely if they can allow a fire truck or an ambulance to go through. Listen, guys, we really do need to have access to the streets. This is a crime, by the way, and a pretty serious one, because if a fire truck or if an ambulance needs to come through and they have to stop, I mean, it could mean the difference between life and death.
You guys talking to me, so what can we do to hurry this up? Because we have fire trucks and ambulances that might need to get through here.
They can come
and
through here.
You're talking about the community, and we're talking about making sure that your neighbors can get access to emergency services.
City buses have been easily passing.
Everybody is neighbors in Minnesota. It's like this perverse, I don't know, like it's like a disgusting version of Minnesota nice. Oh yeah, we're all neighbors, eh? But they're really referring to illegal aliens and Antifa.
And we're all here. When they come, we'll move it for them, you know? Frankly, you're the one blocking it right now.
Yeah, I heard there was some men like running around over there abducting people.
We're watching the community because you guys aren't.
You're driving with swapped plates on their cars. Why aren't you ticketing them?
Oh,
They've got swapped plates on their cars. That's not legal in Minnesota.
They're like, yeah, okay, this is useless.
Don't take care of
But you look for ice next time.
Can you imagine just getting trolled by Antifa? Worthless. You know, I've had people who are law enforcement in Minnesota reach out to me, generally sheriffs and people in sheriff's departments, and they are so frustrated with this stuff. They're like, obviously, we don't like these guys. We want to help out, and like, you know, if ICE or federal agents are coming to areas outside of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and they end up having an interaction with these local law enforcement agencies, it's entirely positive. They're doing everything they can to make sure that these agents are able to get these dangerous illegals off the street. But this is just absolutely incredible that they're allowed to operate in this way. And, you know, that the reason I brought up that kid who was murdered in the Chaz back in the Summer of Love is because that $10 million judgment, I mean, that's going to be paid by the people of the city of Seattle. Yeah, I mean, like, it's not like that money's going to come out of thin air. That's going to come out of the people's pockets who live there, whether they support this bullshit or not. Now, we also had crazy stuff happening in Los Angeles over the weekend. We're only going to watch this video, though, because it's rather satisfying. This is one of those Antifa protesters that's been taken down by the LAPD, and it seems like they're just done with the bullshit.
Let her go! In the area! Get the fuck out! Stop fucking in here with the stick! Get the fuck out! Fucking you're the safety of fucking murder!
Los Angeles this weekend was like a war zone. It was nuts. There was all kinds of tear gas and flashbangs and lots of crowd control going on. Also, a lot of people like these hosers right here. Sabrado says, I literally double dog dare somebody to stop me with a roadblock like that crap. I would end up on the news for sure. Anyways, this, I mean, at this point, I'm just like, please call in the troops. Like, let's just have these people removed from the streets. And here is an excellent example why this needs to happen. These people are organized, all right? I mean, we've already seen it in the Signal chats. Recently, they were able to pull this ICE resistance manual, these training documents. These were being produced by Minnesota schools. Okay, so like this is being produced with federal funding right now. Minnesota Ice Watch is the organization that Renee Good and her girlfriend were members of, and they were distributing this document. It's called the De-Arrest Primer, and it tells activists how to physically interfere with law enforcement officers during arrests in order to make sure that they are able to get away from officers, how they can stop officers from arresting their comrades. It provides detailed guidance on how to pull detainees away from the grip of officers, pushing and pulling those officers, breaking holds, opening law enforcement vehicles to free suspects, really illegal stuff. It also teaches the use of coordinated chanting to create confusion and overwhelm officers during active arrests. That works, okay? I mean, they've got it down pat, as well as surrounding officers until they release detainees. We see these tactics on a regular basis. So the guide openly acknowledges that these types of actions may constitute criminal offenses, but argues the risk is justified. Each successful interference is described as a micro-intifada, framed as a tactic meant to spread, replicate, and inspire wider disruption. The manual also claims that these methods originated in pro-Palestinian campus protests, and it presents them as a model for broader resistance activity. While there is no formal publisher identified on these documents, no surprise there, the manual appears to originate from broader activist and radical left-wing networks that promote direct physical interference with law enforcement. It's getting circulated widely through Instagram and other activist communication channels, and they've been using it in training individuals described as constitutional observers or ICE watchers. Their behavior is not constitutional. The ICE behavior, however, is lawful. Minnesota Ice Watch reposted this manual back in June prior to the surge beginning in Minneapolis and the anti-ICE activity that we're seeing there now, and it linked it for training sessions that was focused on disrupting arrests. They were ready well in advance of anybody dropping onto the streets. The media coverage has frequently described Ice Watch activity as nonviolent observation. Of course, we know that it's anything but. They completely omit the physical interference tactics that we see detailed in these manuals. The document is clear evidence of organized agitation and the deliberate instruction in confronting and obstructing law enforcement. You've got numerous anti-ICE training handbooks and manuals that are being produced and circulated all throughout the United States. Some of them are linked to specific anti-ICE resistance groups. They are the ones providing the training, organizing these protests, conducting these patrols, and they include organizations like COPOL MN, which is Comunidades Organizado El Poder y la Acción Latina, something about communist Latinas, the Immigrant Defense Network, and other related groups. A lot of this training, the organizing, the distribution of these anti-ICE resistance groups is taking place at schools. Of course, they are receiving federal funding. I think that that is an adequate reason to pull that federal funding. It raises a lot of questions about whether or not these groups instigating the actions against the government should be allowed to continue because they are using taxpayer money, and it is quite frankly an open insurrection. We are verging on civil war here at this point, even if these people are largely panty wastes. Furthermore, mainstream media attempts to present the anti-ICE resistance groups at schools as a reaction to what happened to Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy. Many of these groups were already active, though, prior to those events taking place. And because of the deployment of these nearly 3,000 ICE agents in late 2025, you've got several parent-teacher groups at the school that were attended by Renee Good's son who have already formed what they call volunteer safety committees. These committees hold meetings. Sometimes they're on school grounds. Other times they're at nearby community centers. They discuss exactly how to handle encounters with federal agents. The training included the use of red cards, which are commonly known as Know Your Rights materials, as well as coordinated neighborhood watch schedules. That was what Renee Good was doing. These groups effectively train parents on how to stalk and harass federal agents, and in some cases, leave their kids orphans. There are also reports that Know Your Rights handbooks and anti-ICE materials have been distributed through school channels or by volunteers stationed at school gates. Wallet-sized red cards and booklets explaining how to refuse consent for searches have been widely distributed to parents during drop-off and pickup of their children. While the school district maintains they don't distribute this type of propaganda, you've got critics pointing to the Minneapolis Federation of Teachers, which has been vocal in its stance against ICE, and to reports that teachers are the ones helping distribute these materials to families they deem to be at risk. Kristi Noem, Secretary of Homeland Security, and federal spokespeople have acknowledged that Renee Good was stalking and impeding ICE agents throughout that entire morning, and they linked her actions directly to this exact type of material and behavior. She got this through community networks that were centered around her son's school. They point to the use of whistles, walkie-talkies, blocking maneuvers practiced by these people. The same type of activity that we see described in these manuals are exactly what we saw on January 7th and even what we saw at the Alex Preddy shooting. Neighbors have said that Renee Good regularly attended these ICE Watch meetings and got this exact same type of training prior to her death at the hand of an ICE agent. Now, the manual portrays arrest as inherently harmful and asserts that compliance or passivity leads to greater damage than resistance, even if your forehead gets ventilated, I suppose. They encourage the escalation to continue. They want to undermine what they deem to be an oppressive ruling system. Now, Renee's son, who is a 6-year-old, he attends a small social justice charter school in Minneapolis. They promote this exact same type of behavior. The school teaches students about George Floyd, racism, sexism, classism, homophobia, what they describe as Aboriginal issues. And a former teacher said many parents are already activists. This curriculum emphasizes critical thinking tied to activism and encourages children to engage in these exact same types of causes. According to another former staff member, when ICE agents were stationed several blocks from the school during the height of the protests, administrators instructed teachers to report any ICE presence on school property. Of course, Good was killed during an ICE operation because she was stalking ICE. She then tried to run a guy over with her car, and she was warned on many different occasions. She was laughing the entire time, even as she was getting shot by a couple of bullets. And if it wasn't for Renee Nicole Good's own stupidity and the training that she received in these very types of manuals, she would likely be alive today to make her son dinner. So it was a tragedy that could have easily been averted. Now, take a look at this. This is also from Los Angeles over the weekend. We have a member of the media who he's in the midst of putting his camera equipment away. And from a live helicopter view just above, you can see that protesters or radicals on the ground are spray painting his vehicle. They're trying to figure out if they can steal it, even as he's standing at the back of the vehicle. These people are brazen.
All right, we're back live over the protests in downtown LA, where things got rather hairy and very quickly. We watched as Fox 11's Rachel Aragon tried to talk to us, tried to report from the scene, and then something triggered a few of those protesters or people that were hanging around even after an order to disperse. Let's go up to Sky Fox and Justin O'Brien. And Justin, you watched as Elliot, the photographer, went back to the Fox 11 van. What happened then?
Yes, Susan, I was wondering where he was just to make sure that he made it back to the van safely, obviously on his own, and I did find him, and let's go to that video. You can see it rolling there. I found him at the back of the van loading his equipment, but then somebody came up with a rock, smashed the passenger side window, and then went to the front of the vehicle and started graffitiing it, and then tried to actually get in the vehicle. Luckily, the vehicle was not running or had a key in it. He attempted to possibly drive away in it. Now, I did text Elliot after he was able to successfully get in the vehicle and safely drive away to a distance to confirm that he's okay. He does not appear to have suffered any physical injuries from the person, although
he locks it after the guy closes the door.
The person was in his face. So just a very, very scary time there.
He's like, oh, shit, mate. They spray painted my bonnet and they smashed out the window. Terrible. Okay, now here is the actual clash that led to the dispersal order. Those blue noodles mess me up every time. And they got a guy playing the bagpipes. And just for clarification, this is at the federal building in Los Angeles. These tiny windows are actual cells. So you had people who had been picked up by ICE that were like waving and giving thumbs up and cheering these people on. Yeah, and it escalates from there. Nothing that we haven't seen already. Now, Ilhan Omar, of course, is very, very nervous about what's going to happen to her, not only in terms of her freedom and maybe where she's going to live for the rest of her life, but certainly with her position in the U.S. House of Representatives. She said that Democrats plan to impeach Kristi Noem if she doesn't resign. Stephen Miller, they've also called for him to be prosecuted and fired. They have, of course, repeatedly labeled him a Nazi, which is hilarious. She also appeared on MS Now with Chris Hayes, and she discussed the incident where she was fake attacked with a apple cider vinegar, what you might call a Muslim acid attack last week. And I don't know how she connects this to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, other than, you know, her repeated statements that because she's Somalian, it makes her a target by Trump supporters. I don't think this guy is a Trump supporter, and I remain steadfast in my position that the entire attack was faked. Many other people believe it was staged as well. President Trump said as much. Omar couldn't give a coherent answer regarding this attack when asked about President Trump's statement that it was likely faked. And it wouldn't be the first time that she has made up a story in an attempted PR stunt. This is something we see Democrats doing quite often. You might remember that she accused ICE agents of stopping her son and racially profiling him because he's Somali, but ICE very quickly demolished that narrative. They said they had zero record of their officers or agents pulling over the congresswoman's son. So now she's blaming the Trump administration. She said Trump is creating anger by going after Somali immigrants. Well, tell your people to stop scamming and pirating, and we wouldn't have to go after them. We're not going after all of them. We're just going after the ones that are scamming. It just happens to be 90% of y'all. It is the rhetoric that is risking lives that have already gotten people killed here in Minnesota. It's gotten a couple of white morons killed, but I mean, they were directly interfering with ICE operations. It has nothing to do with any rhetoric that President Trump or anybody else might be spewing. But she says it is producing political violence, and they are creating the domestic terrorists that they speak about because they are acting like domestic terrorists. So she made this promise to impeach Kristi Noem. Definitely, Kristi Noem should resign. If not, as leader Hakeem Jeffries stated, we will initiate impeachment. Do it. Go for it, because you're not going to be able to impeach her, and you're also not going to be able to get Stephen Miller fired. You guys are just going to spin your wheels. It's not going anywhere. He should definitely be out, she said. I believe for his part in this, definitely should be prosecuted at some point. Why? Because he's a policy hawk? Because he's an immigration hawk? Because he wants to get each and every one of you scamming illegals out of this country? I got no problem with that. And I don't have any problem with Kristi Noem either. I think Kristi Noem's done a great job. They wouldn't be trying to fire either of these people or get them tossed out of the administration if it wasn't for the fact that they were effective. That's what they are afraid of. They are afraid of just how effective they are. And together, they know what is at stake if this operation is successful. About Stephen Miller, Hakeem Jeffries said he needs to go as well. Dollar Store Obama continued. He's a stone-cold liar. He's a bigot. He's a hateful individual. He's malignant and unelected interloper. Well, he serves at the pleasure of the president, Hakeem. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer also said much the same thing. He said Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller are effing liars. I believe he said that on the floor of Congress. Well, you guys can continue to cry because you're not going to be successful. Let me say thank you to Sean Joe for dropping another 3-month subscription picked up by my girl Knocked My Socks Off. Zach from Tennessee, thank you for the candy. Says, so Marcinko was a deep state asset. Checks out. Something about him always made me feel the ick. Maybe. We'll talk about it a little bit more in a few minutes. Las Vegas Patriot, thank you for the fleet, my friend. He says, thank you for being one of the hardest working guys in the business. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. All right, as we continue, before we talk about the Clintons, very quickly, okay, hold on just a second. Looks like I need to refresh my screen. Oh my gosh, they kicked me out of Rumble Studio. Am I back? I'm back in. Thank God, I'm back in. Okay, before we continue, I have a very brief message from our friends over here on Rumble. You guys, you know that banks are not good. They can cancel your accounts. They can freeze your cards. They can decide what you're allowed to buy, say, or who you can support. But big banks and financial institutions have total control, and they use it. And that's why financial independence matters now more than ever. So introducing Rumble Wallet. It's a wallet built for real freedom. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company. You can buy digital assets like Tether, Tether Gold, and Bitcoin and keep them all in one secure place. No permissions, no middlemen, no cancel button. And when you want to support creators you actually believe in, you can use that Rumble Wallet app to directly tip those content creators. There are no middlemen. Nothing comes off the top. It is secure, instant, and without interference. This isn't a credit line they can shut off. It's your wallet, permanently yours to protect your future, yours to protect your family. And when the system fails, when institutions turn on their own people, financial sovereignty is the difference between security and vulnerability. And Rumble Wallet isn't about politics. It's about freedom, ownership, and protecting what's yours. So take control today. Download free the Rumble Wallet at wallet.rumble.com or from the App Store on your phone and step away from the big banks for good. True ownership, true protection, true financial freedom. You can also use that QR code that you see on screen right there. Thank you very much to the good folks over there at Rumble. All right, so surprise, surprise, the Clintons know that their vote in Congress for contempt of Congress is coming up any day now. I believe it's taking place tomorrow or Wednesday. And they are once again attempting to dodge those contempt charges by requesting special treatment. And Oversight Chairman James Comer is not going to do it. Now, the committee voted last month to vote to hold the Clintons in contempt. 9 Democrats joined Republicans in recommending to hold Bill Clinton in contempt. 3 Democrats joined Republicans in voting to hold Hillary Clinton in contempt. And the House of Representatives is holding that contempt vote this week. And now the Clintons want out. At the last minute, they are demanding special treatment. So this is what they're requesting. The committee must conduct a transcribed interview with Bill Clinton in lieu of a deposition, which means that Bill Clinton does not want to be on camera. He does not want to appear in person. The committee must also agree to a 4-hour time limit for Clinton's testimony. And Bill Clinton must be the one who designates a transcriber to create an opposing transcript. The committee must also agree to a limitation on the scope of Bill Clinton's testimony. But after defying lawful subpoenas, Bill and Hillary Clinton think that they still have some form of leverage. They could not be more incorrect. So here is James Comer's response. The Clintons are in contempt of Congress. Their attorney's latest letter makes clear they still expect special treatment because of their last name. Well, the Clintons do not get to dictate the terms of lawful subpoenas. I have rejected their offer. Let's take a look at the response from the Oversight Committee. Dear Miss Callan and Miss Turner, the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform has serious concerns with the offer made on behalf of your clients, former President William Jefferson Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton. At the outset, the committee must assess your proposal in light of your client's demonstrated reluctance to provide testimony, which has resulted in the committee, after many months of effort to persuade your clients to comply with these subpoenas, recommending through bipartisan votes that they each be found in contempt of Congress. With that in mind, your offer as it relates to President Clinton raises the following issues. The committee cannot accept the proposed limitation on the scope of President Clinton's testimony. To begin with, your letter does not define what President Clinton considers to be matters related to the investigation and prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein. And based on our months of correspondence related to these subpoenas, the committee believes that he likely has an artificially narrow definition in mind. For example, the committee is concerned that were it to agree to your proposed scope restriction, President Clinton would refuse to answer questions related, among other things, to his personal relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and with Ghislaine Maxwell, ways in which they sought to curry favor with powerful individuals, and alleged efforts to utilize his power and influence after his presidency to kill negative news stories about Jeffrey Epstein. To be clear, the committee considers each of these topics to be ultimately related to the investigations and prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein, but it appears that President Clinton does not. Furthermore, his counsel in an October 26, 2025 letter asserted that he and Secretary Clinton had no relevant knowledge of the committee's investigation, which could not possibly be the case. For example, they considered their personal relationships with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell relevant to the purpose of the committee's investigation. Additionally, the committee has repeatedly made clear to President Clinton that its investigative purposes go far beyond the alleged mismanagement of the federal government's investigation into Epstein and Maxwell, and include, among many other things, ways in which they sought to curry favor and exercise influence to protect their illegal activities, as well as the operation of sex trafficking rings, and ways for the federal government to effectively combat them. Yet your letter continues to completely ignore these purposes. For these reasons, the committee believes that your proposed limitation on the scope of President Clinton's testimony would result in your client answering very few questions. Your proposal for the committee to conduct a transcribed interview with President Clinton in lieu of a deposition under oath, and to withdraw its deposition subpoena and contempt resolution prior to that transcribed interview, is not reasonable. As you know, a transcribed interview is voluntary, meaning that the subject may then refuse to answer questions about any assertion of privilege or constitutional right. The conditions requested thus would enable President Clinton to refuse to answer whatever questions he wanted for whatever reasons he wanted, and leave as the committee's only recourse to again subpoena President Clinton's testimony, effectively restarting this entire process from the beginning. Now, had President Clinton initially offered to participate in a transcribed interview upon receiving the subpoena, the committee may have considered that approach. But given that he has already failed to appear for a deposition and has refused for several months to provide the committee with testimony in person, the committee cannot simply have faith that President Clinton will not refuse to answer questions as in a transcribed interview, resulting in the committee being right back where it is today. Moreover, we would note that the committee's approach here is consistent with the approach it took during last Congress with respect to Hunter Biden. There, following a committee vote to hold Hunter Biden in contempt for failure to appear for a deposition, the committee insisted that he appear for a deposition rather than transcribed interview, and Hunter Biden agreed to do that in exchange for the full House not considering any contempt proceedings against him. President Clinton should do the same now. The committee cannot agree to a 4-hour time limit for President Clinton's testimony. To begin with, a hard time limit provides a witness with the incentive to attempt to run out the clock by giving unnecessarily long answers and meandering off topic. This is a particular concern where a witness like President Clinton has an established record of being a loquacious individual. Moreover, President Clinton's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell spanned more than 15 years. Limiting President Clinton's testimony to 4 hours is insufficient time for the committee to gain a full understanding of Clinton's personal relationship with them, his knowledge of their sex trafficking ring, and his experience with their efforts to curry favor and exercise influence to protect themselves. Furthermore, the committee's practice is to split time equally between majority and minority in 1-hour blocks. Yet you have proposed dividing the 4 hours into 30-minute blocks. This is unacceptable, as it would unnecessarily interrupt lines of questioning. Moreover, President Clinton has no legitimate interest in whether the majority and minority alternate questioning every half hour or every hour. To the extent that President Clinton would need physical breaks during his deposition, that is something that could be discussed separately. And finally, the committee notes that it has no interest in unnecessarily prolonging its deposition of President Clinton and intends, with his cooperation, to finish the deposition within the business day. The proposal for President Clinton to designate a transcriber to create an opposing transcript raises concerns as to the purpose of having a secondary non-impartial transcriber employed by President Clinton without a video of the interview. President Clinton's documented history of parsing language to avoid questions and responding falsely under oath resulted in his impeachment in the U.S. House of Representatives and suspension from the practice of law. Furthermore, while the House of Representatives employs official reporters, they are not employees of the committee. They are fully impartial and have transcribed thousands of interviews, depositions, and hearings without any concern. The committee can only think the purpose of the proposal for the second transcriber is to enable President Clinton to dispute the accuracy of his testimony and create confusion. Now, regarding Secretary Clinton, the committee has made clear on numerous occasions the necessity of her in-person testimony and unacceptability of simple sworn declarations. We therefore reject your request for her to submit a secondary sworn declaration in lieu of appearing for a deposition. And for the reasons stated above, we also reject modeling any appearance by her in front of the committee along the lines of those you have proposed for President Clinton. For the aforementioned reasons, the committee must decline the unreasonable offer in your January 31st letter. It has been nearly 6 months since your clients first received the committee's subpoena, more than 3 months since the original date of their depositions, and nearly 3 weeks since they failed to appear for their depositions commensurate with the committee's lawful subpoenas. Your client's desire for special treatment is both frustrating and an affront to the American people's desire for transparency. The Honorable James Comer. Well, I am so happy that they are continuing to carry this forward. I cannot wait to see them both held in contempt. We'd also need to give a shout out to Dan Bongino, who today has returned to podcasting. He had like 170,000 live people watching his show earlier today. It pretty much broke Rumble because so many people were in the chat. He also, of course, had President Trump on, and President Trump took a moment to hearken back to the events of Fulton County, Georgia, and the raid which just took place in their election warehouse. Let's take a listen. He says, good things are coming.
Sort of nationalize the voting. And we have states that are so crooked, and they're counting votes. We have states that I won that show I didn't win. Now you're going to see something in Georgia where they were able to get, with a court order, the ballots. You're going to see some interesting things come out. But, you know, like the 20.
Wow, 226,000.
So much. Everybody does.
226,000 at the top end. Good for him.
Does it? They put a woman in jail, Colorado, put a woman in jail, a wonderful woman, 72 years old, had cancer, because she was a voting inspector. She was in charge of a voting area, and she saw boxes of votes come in. So she went over to check it, and they put her in jail for voter manipulation, and she's still in jail. And they better let her out fast. And they're suffering a big price, Colorado. They have this woman in jail who's 71 years old and probably has cancer. She's sick. And they put her in because she challenged somebody that was dumping ballots into a box, okay? And they didn't put them in jail. This was during Biden's term. The worst president in history. And we had some bad ones. I mean, look, Barack Hussein Obama, I call him the Great Divider. Right. People couldn't stand him. You mentioned his name, they go crazy. They start booing the hell out of him. We had some really bad ones. I mean, Jimmy Carter wasn't exactly the greatest. Jimmy Carter didn't exactly have the hit on Venezuela that I remember.
I saw somebody said that they released the coroner's report on Alex Preddy in Minnesota. Homicide is simply when your life is taken by somebody else. It is not a legal application of the manner in which that homicide took place. So don't get too hung up on that. The actual investigation is being done by the feds, and the local coroner obviously is merely there to determine the cause of death. So President Trump says that big things are about to come out in regards to the 2020 election, the findings in Fulton County. We know that to be true. Simply wanted to reinforce that because President Trump is not letting it go. All right, now we are going to transition to the Epstein files. Now, somebody who was featured prominently in these new file releases was Elon Musk. There was a series of emails back and forth between Elon Musk and Jeffrey Epstein, where Jeffrey had invited Elon to the island. There was one email where Elon basically said he was looking to party and he was looking for, the biggest party that Jeffrey Epstein was going to have. Jeffrey Epstein basically said it's not going to be that kind of a get-together, and so Elon declined to come. At another point, he had reached out and said that he was going to be in town and maybe he could come by. It doesn't appear that he ever actually went to the island. And with regard to the people that seem to be good people, Elon Musk, Howard Lutnick, who I will also talk about, maybe even Marcinko, there is the very real possibility that these people were acting as some type of a confidential informant, even this far back, because these emails between Jeffrey Epstein and Elon, these were in the early 2010s. And but we have no way to prove that, okay? And I'm not going to say it with any certainty because I don't know. But what I can tell you is from these emails, it doesn't appear that Elon Musk ever went to the island. And Elon responds to the facts that these emails came out. He had said, as soon as people started digging in, he said, I knew that there would be emails from me to Jeffrey Epstein in those files. And I knew that they would be used to try to discredit me, and they would be taken out of context. He said, I am the only person basically in this sector, in the Silicon Valley sphere, who has since day one been demanding that the Epstein files be released. He said, I knew those emails were in there, and I knew that this was going to happen. He said, nobody has fought harder for the full release of the Epstein files and prosecutions of those who abused children more than I did, knowing full well that the legacy media, far-left propagandists, and those who are actually guilty would, 1, admit nothing, and they haven't. Number 2, deny everything, which they have. And 3, make counter accusations against me, which they are actively doing right now. I knew that I would be smeared relentlessly, despite never having attended his parties or having been on his Lolita Express plane or setting foot on his creepy island or done anything wrong at all. Nonetheless, the extreme pain of being accused of being the opposite of who I am was worth it. The strong must protect those who protect themselves, especially vulnerable children. I will gladly accept any amount of future pain to do more to protect kids and give them a chance to grow up and have happy lives. So nobody else is speaking about these files in this way. Who was in there? And there are plenty of people who definitely did go to the island. Now, there was one email discussing 3 girls who needed their passports to be on file for a trip. These have been confirmed to be employees of Elon Musk at this time. He also discusses traveling with his wife. So people have taken that and positioned it as if Elon Musk was being procured underage girls by Jeffrey Epstein. That is not the case. I can confirm that that is not the case. And also, Jeffrey Epstein and Elon Musk, their communications stopped at one point. Also, in one of these emails between Jeffrey Epstein and Elon Musk, Jeffrey Epstein attempts to lure Elon to the island by saying, Reid Hoffman was just here last week. That email, I have seen it. It's real. Also, Elon Musk said, this is how I knew Reid Hoffman had been to the island, because Jeffrey Epstein told me. He tried to use it to get me to come there, but it didn't work. Reid Hoffman has not acknowledged the fact that he has been to the island. He hasn't acknowledged the email where Jeffrey Epstein says Reid was just here last week. And he only has used that email as a means to try to impugn Elon Musk. He's basically accusing Elon of doing what I think most people believe Reid Hoffman had done. I need to tie my shoes. Okay, all done. Now, surprisingly, 200 Epstein victims. These are the people who were just a few months ago demanding the full release of the Epstein files, have now, after this most recent release, which I will say has been the most damaging for the most number of people, they are now suddenly pushing to have a federal judge block the DOJ from releasing any more Epstein files and to remove them from public view. This is a dramatic turnaround. And it is very interesting to see because as before, they were essentially accusing President Trump of hiding all of this information. You know, one of the reasons that I think Elon Musk in his communications with Jeffrey Epstein may have been operating as a confidential informant is because I think that Elon and Trump have been working together for quite some time. And if you go back to when he broke off from the administration and he went on X and he had that tantrum and he said, Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. And that was when the left picked it up. And suddenly, for the first time in history, they wanted the Epstein files to be made public because they thought that they were going to be damaging to President Trump. Of course, later, Elon Musk retracted that statement, but he threw out a hooked worm, okay? And those people took it hook, line, and sinker. And right now, it is damaging them in ways that I don't think that they believed was possible. I think that they thought that a lot of these records were lost to history and would never see the light of day. And most likely the ones that we are getting right now, they thought were never going to come out. So I think that there is quite possibly some among the Epstein victims who have been paid off. They have been bought. I can't tell you who, all right, because there are numerous. There are many of them. But the fact that there are 200 victims who got exactly what they demanded President Trump and the DOJ do, and now they are ultimately trying to have these files removed from public view and stop the DOJ from releasing all of these files, that makes absolutely no sense from a transparency standpoint, which is what they claimed they were going for before. They said that President Trump and the DOJ were stalling. Well, then once President Trump and the DOJ gave them what they wanted and released all these Epstein files, suddenly they don't want it. No. Okay, this is bad. We don't want to put this stuff out there because it is damaging to the people who would have an interest in buying off people who are susceptible to being bought off. President Trump has been fully exonerated from these files every single time, over and over and over again. Despite the fact that there is some salacious stuff using President Trump's name in this latest release, it's all from random yahoos who called in to the victim line just prior to the 2020 election, gave these crazy stories about President Trump with details that simply don't match up with reality. Not just, that President Trump wouldn't do these things, but claiming that crimes were committed against them at properties that Trump owns now, but that didn't exist at the time that they were allegedly abused. And these people were never willing to return a call from the FBI, to go on record and to actually swear to this under oath. It was merely an attempt to try to insert fake information into the system. What's really interesting is that we can go back to the time before the 2016 election when the WikiLeaks Podesta emails were coming out. And Jeffrey Epstein actually has a conversation with someone in his email very concerned about those Podesta emails, concerned that those emails are going to put Hillary Clinton in prison. And he actually comes up with the idea to release fake emails, to put out fake information, to confuse the public about what's real and what's not real. So, I think we have to take everything with a grain of salt when we're looking at this, despite the fact that a lot of it appears to be the type of thing that people would expect to see. So, these 200 or so victims are now suing to force the DOJ to take down all of these documents that they demanded be released. These are the same activists and lawyers who attacked President Trump, who attacked the administration, who said that they were delaying, who said that they were failing to disclose, that they don't care about victims. Now that these documents have fully exonerated President Trump and they completely have impugned many people on the left, they are nervous and they are trying to stop it from happening. Now, I want to take you back to Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche's statement in that longer press conference that he did last week. I didn't harp on this at the time because I wanted to see what was going to be released in these files. But he made a comment that is wholly unlike anything he has ever said about these files before. Take a listen to this.
Any depiction of CSAM or child pornography was obviously excluded.
That's not new. They've already said on record, we are not going to be releasing pictures or videos of victim. Anything related to that stuff is not going to be in there. So obviously they have obscured people's faces. They have taken the action of blacking out the faces of all women and all children in this latest release, but they have not blacked out the faces of any men. All men's faces are released in these latest documents. But what he says next is chilling.
Anything that would jeopardize an active federal investigation. And finally, anything that depicts or contain images of death, physical abuse, or injury, also not produced.
Death, physical abuse, or injury. There's no reason for him to specify that that will not have been part of this release unless they actually included those things. Death, physical abuse, and injury. Now I want to show you a couple of emails. So take a look at this one right here. This is an email to Jeffrey Epstein. The sender is blocked out, and Jeffrey Epstein sent a letter to them responding to either a picture or a video. And he said, she looks pregnant. And the person responds, you mean radiating a soft glow with the look of bliss and excitement? Yeah, that's the pizza. That's the pizza. Interesting. We all know that pizza is a subject which is quite controversial and directly related to the procurement of children. Pizza is a code word featured prominently in the Podesta emails. Now, we also have an email here between a researcher who is looking into these cases and an NYPD detective named Walter Harkins. Now, Walter was on a task force, the NYPD Detective Bureau for Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking. He's also mentioned in the FBI raid of the Epstein Island. Now, Walter Harkins, right here, receives an email which has images attached to it. We don't have those images. And this is April 28th, 2019. Excuse me, August 28th, 2019. I'd like to add a few other points disclosed by the purported victim. Now, this is wholly different from the random reports that were called into an anonymous tip line. These are investigators on a task force for child exploitation and human trafficking discussing a victim. I'd like to add a few other points disclosed by the purported victim. While on this yacht, he witnessed African-American males having sex with white blonde females, all of whom were bleeding during intercourse. He was a victim of a type of ritualistic sacrifice in which his feet were cut with a scimitar but left no scarring. On the yacht, he witnessed babies being dismembered, their intestines removed, and individuals eating the feces from these intestines. He was also raped by George Bush I. Victim disclosed he was escorted to the FBI building by Michael Moore, who is the creator of True Pundit. That is wild. Described by multiple online sources as a conspiracy-driven news website that attempts to paint the FBI in a bad light. Moore has a criminal record as a result of an FBI investigation for copyright infringement. Total bullshit. Let me know if you want to discuss the former FBI agent that called into this head of office. Now, I don't know if this is a report given by the person who was abused or if this is Michael Moore who has made contact with this individual who is then called into the FBI, perhaps people that he used to work with. Now, it looks like Walter Harkins or whomever. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. This is someone at the FBI in New York, SSA. This would, I don't know what that stands for, but something special agent maybe. The person says, thanks, and then it's redacted, but I would imagine it's probably Walter Harkins. I didn't realize Bush raped him too. Okay. He has more to tell us too, he says. Okay, so rape, torture, evil things. You got multiple images connected to it. Don't know what they entail, but possibly that. And then, just for shits and giggles, this is from the Stratfor email release, which came out prior to the Podesta emails. People didn't really catch on to this until we started paying attention to the pizza stuff right before the 2016 election. And this is from this is Burton at Stratfor sending out an email to other employees at Stratfor. Stratfor was like a private intelligence company. And it's regarding headcount for pizza. Headcount, who all is in the Austin office today and who is going to want pizza? We only have one slice, and we need to know how thinly to slice it. And somebody responds, does the pizza offer include those of us who can't make the meeting because we're out here editing? Because if so, count me in. Are you sure this might not be a Jim Jones Kool-Aid event? T-Call, please eat my slice. Who's going to have a single slice of pizza for an entire office? Doesn't make any sense. But it does make sense if you're talking about something that is coded. Here's another one sent to Jeffrey Epstein. And it sounds like this person is responding to a video sent to him by Jeffrey. This is Jeffrey Epstein responding to a redacted individual. So Jeffrey is responding regarding a video he was sent. Where are you? Are you okay? I loved the torture video. I loved the no, it's not drugs. It's not cocaine. Pizza doesn't stand for that. Pizza stands for children. Okay. That's being established. And that's not just me being a conspiracy theorist. That has been established by the FBI. And it's also widely used by people in these sick circles. Cheese pizza, CP, stands for child abuse material. Okay. Now, continuing, my friend BX says these Epstein emails are horrifying. Whatever the DOJ has alleged about the network, it is at least 1,000 times worse. Here's an email from Roy Hodges to Jeffrey Epstein. I wanted to let you know the crew really appreciated the pizza today. Thanks for letting us do that. Thanks for letting us do what? Eat pizza? That's not the way you talk about pizza. You say, dude, where'd that pizza come from? I loved the deep dish. Tell me exactly where it was ordered from. No, thanks for letting us do that. Do the pizza. Here's another email from someone to Jeffrey Epstein, and the subject is Veru. It has a PDF attached to it, Veru Equity Research Brookline.pdf. This is better than a Chinese cookie. See attached, referring to the PDF. Let's go for pizza and grape soda again. No one else can understand. Go no. Let's go for pizza and grape soda. Grape, take off the G, and you could be referring to the act of forcing yourself on that pizza. Why can nobody else understand how much you like pizza and grape soda? Grape soda is delicious. So is pizza. It's not Secret Service because it was an FBI agent. It's a title for a position at the FBI. I just don't know what it is. Like something special agent, I think it is. All right, here's another email to Jeffrey regarding the pizza monster. So this email from Jeffrey originally shows this emoji, this surprised face emoji. And, oh yeah, it's the same one. She looks pregnant. You mean radiating the soft glow? Yeah, that's the pizza. Here's another one where someone sends Jeffrey an email and says, if you're not too busy, click on the video below to watch it. It was a 1 minute and 6 second video, and it was sent from a flip camcorder, which is these old digital cameras that were used, before like phones were like really good with cameras. And Jeffrey responds, I watched them all. Please don't send any more. And this person responds, it's Ghislaine Maxwell, G-Max. We know it's G-Max because that's unredacted. And she says, sorry, I have no stomach for even the slightest aggro. Aggro means aggression. I don't have the stomach for it or for any drama, imaginary or real. I'm still fragile off the last one and scared of shadows. It sounds Supervisory Special Agent. Claire, you are a winner. Thank you very much. Supervisory Special Agent. She says, I'm still fragile off the last one and scared of shadows. Well, whatever it was that was sent must have been pretty disturbing. Pretty disturbing. Continuing. We have this post from President Trump. He says, not only wasn't I friendly with Jeffrey Epstein, but based upon information that has just been released by the Department of Justice, Epstein and a sleazebag lying author named Michael Wolff conspired in order to damage me and or my presidency. That actually was part of a release from several months back. But now President Trump is considering suing Michael Wolff because his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein as a result of this latest release has been shown to be even deeper and closer than what we saw before. So much for the radical left's hope against hope, some of whom I'll be suing. Additionally, unlike so many people that like to talk trash, I never went to the infested Epstein Island, but almost all of these crooked Democrats and their donors did. And that, I think, is why they are trying to shut this down. Now, I think there's another reason they're trying to shut it down, because a lot of it is now directly connecting to the Central Intelligence Agency. You remember good old Kathy Rumler, Barack Obama's head counsel, who was also very good friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Remember, he helped her get a job at another bank, and then they continued to email. He also joked with her about his predilections for young women. Kathy Rumler wrote to Jeffrey Epstein on January 8th of 2015. John Brennan, remember, he was the director of the Central Intelligence Agency on this date. John Brennan gave me the CIA Agency Medal, the CIA's highest award this morning. How cool is that? Well, hold on just a second. Kathy Rumler was never a CIA agent, or was she? In fact, she must have been, and she may still be, because this medal she's referring to is not given out to people who are not agents or employees of the Central Intelligence Agency. This was during Barack Hussein Obama's final year in office, January 8th, 2015. I'm sorry, he still would have had several months, a good portion of 2016. But Kathy Rumler admits to Jeffrey Epstein in early 2015 that she has just received the highest award that the CIA can bestow. That leaves us with only one conclusion. She was, at least at that time, an employee of the Central Intelligence Agency, while she was the head counsel for Barack Hussein Obama. And as we know, he has all kinds of connections with the Central Intelligence Agency. Mike Ben says, when I saw this, I wondered why I'd never heard this before. Her CIA agency award in 2015 was not, and still has not been reported by any press outlet whatsoever, not even a fringe one. It's not in her Wikipedia, and it's not in her extensive current Goldman Sachs bio. In fact, that agency award, I'm assuming, is the Distinguished Intelligence Cross. This is the highest decoration that is awarded by the Central Intelligence Agency. It's given for a voluntary act or acts of extraordinary heroism involving the acceptance of existing dangers with conspicuous fortitude and exemplary courage. Only a handful of people have ever been awarded this medal in the history of the agency, most posthumously. As a consequence, it's one of the rarest awards for valor in the United States. There are some known recipients of it, but most people never admit that they receive it because most people don't have the clearance to even know they've gotten it. It's kind of the equivalent of the Navy Cross or the Army's Distinguished Service Cross or the Air Force Cross. The agency has 2 awards for valor. The other is the Intelligence Star, which is analogous to the military's Silver Star. Now, I first thought maybe it was the Distinguished Intelligence Medal, which is also only given to Central Intelligence Agency employees. This would be for performance of outstanding services or for achievement of a distinctly exceptional nature in duty or responsibility. But it's not the highest award that the CIA offers or passes out. That is the Distinguished Intelligence Cross. Now, without Kathy Rumler explicitly stating which, we don't know. But if I had to guess, I would say it would be one of these, most likely the Intelligence Cross. And it also leads us to only one conclusion. Kathy Rumler is CIA. Lee Walden says, ahoy, Zach and crew. We knew the time of reckoning was coming. God willing, we the people prevail and experience the real promise of America. Stay frosty, co-founder. Love you. Mean it. Love you too, brother. Thank you so much. All right. Now, we also have this found by Mike Benz. So Vicky Ward was the reporter who initially gave us that claim that Alex Acosta was told to back off of Jeffrey Epstein because he belonged to intelligence. That didn't come until July of 2019. That was when this all kind of started brewing. The thing is, 7 months before that, Steve Bannon forwards an article about Alex Acosta to Jeffrey Epstein. And this is what Jeffrey Epstein responded. He sends this Alex Acosta update. Earlier this week, pedophile Jeffrey Epstein bought his way out of a lawsuit that would have given some of his victims the opportunity to testify about his predatory and criminal conduct. Because Alex Acosta, then lead prosecutor, now Secretary of Labor, let Epstein off, referring to the time when he was the U.S. attorney and he let Epstein off with a light sentence. Epstein replies, do you know Bill Barr? CIA. Of course, Bill Barr started his career in Washington at the Central Intelligence Agency. At this time, he wasn't CIA. But of course, as we know, once CIA, always CIA. So Jeffrey Epstein seems to be suggesting that the order Alex Acosta got likely came from Bill Barr, and Bill Barr's knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's work that he was doing for the Central Intelligence Agency. It, again, leads back to the idea that Jeffrey Epstein was always owned and protected by intelligence. Here he is. Do you know Bill Barr? CIA. Bill Barr wasn't working for the CIA at this time. But of course, Bill Barr was and likely still remains CIA, even if he's not officially working there any longer. Let me say thank you to a couple of folks over here. Okie7, thank you for the can, and Scott17, thank you for the cookie. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Real quick, before we continue with our next Epstein story, I just have one more brief message from our friends over here on Rumble. You guys, they can freeze your accounts, shut off your cards, lock you out of your own money, and they can do it overnight. Banks do not protect you. They control you. And that's why real financial freedom starts with ownership. So introducing the Rumble Wallet. It's a non-custodial wallet built for people who refuse to give up control. With Rumble Wallet, you don't just buy digital currency like Bitcoin and Tether. You can also own Tether Gold. That is real gold on the blockchain. Through Tether Gold, you get direct ownership of physical gold bars, each one fully allocated, verifiable by serial number, purity, and weight. It's not paper gold. It's not an IOU. It is real gold without bank vaults, storage fees, or gatekeepers. So you can buy, sell, or move it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even when traditional gold markets are closed. And if you want, Tether Gold can also be redeemed for physical gold. That is powerful. And when you support creators on Rumble, you can tip them directly using Rumble Wallet. It's peer-to-peer and outside the banking system. No permissions, no middlemen, no cancel button. The wallet is yours forever. So wallet.rumble.com or use that QR code on screen. And thank you very much. Also, thank you to Patrick D35. Chrissy Teigen admits she's a pedo. I am familiar with this status. We'll pull this up in a moment. Thank you for that, Patrick. But first of all, let's talk about another likely pedo, and that is Lord Peter Mandelson, who in the last Epstein drop was heavily featured. When asked about his relationship with Epstein, he said, "I couldn't have used little girls provided by Jeffrey Epstein because I'm gay." Well, the connections between he and Epstein have become even more problematic. And just earlier today, Lord Peter Mandelson was forced to resign from Keir Starmer's Labour Party, and they are asking for him to be ousted from the House of Lords. He has been officially canceled in the UK. Earlier today, he officially resigned from the Labour Party over his numerous and scandalous mentions in these Epstein files. These revelations are shaking Britain's core right now. It's become pretty clear that Mandelson received substantial amounts of money from Jeffrey Epstein. But what's even more shocking is that he leaked a confidential government briefing to Jeffrey Epstein while he was still alive. This was in 2009. He forwarded an economic briefing which was intended for the Prime Minister, Gordon Brown, and instead sent it on over to Jeffrey Epstein. This would be like somebody taking the presidential daily briefing, photocopying it, and sending it to somebody that was going to use it to, I don't know, manipulate financial markets here in the United States. Mandelson has now been reported to the police for leaking confidential Downing Street files. It's not the first time he's being accused. There was an investigation by Kensington and Chelsea Council for him pissing on the street. You can see that here in November of last year. This photograph of him standing with a young girl wearing his tidy whities and looking at some type of a report. This is a picture that has never been shown before, but it was just recently released in this latest batch of files. Now, the Telegraph, a British paper, has reported that the Metropolitan Police has received numerous referrals from both Reform and the SNP asking for them to investigate Lord Peter Mandelson, who allegedly sent the documents when he was the business secretary of the UK. Documents released by the U.S. Justice Department confirm in 2009, Lord Mandelson forwarded this economic briefing for Gordon Brown to Jeffrey Epstein, and he captioned it, "Interesting note that's gone to the Prime Minister." Let's go ahead and look at this coverage coming out of GB News in the UK.
Now, you were listening in intently to that statement here, and you were in concurrence. You agree. Mandelson's got to go. He's finished.
Well, 100%. I mean, the revelations last September were bad enough, but some of the things that we've heard today, including the leaking of sensitive government information, is just beyond belief. I mean, I concur with many of the colleagues from across the political divide in the House just now. You know, his position as a peer is untenable as far as I can see, and I agree that it looks as a prima facie case for a police investigation to understand exactly what's gone on. He's clearly finished in politics, but I think it's actually far more serious than that. And I mean, in some respects, it's a tragic end to a political career, but he's frankly deserving everything he gets because the revelations today are absolutely appalling.
Yeah, Lord Peter Mandelson is not going to be a politician for much longer, but he's also likely going to end up going to prison in the UK. Here is an older photo that was released previously of Epstein and Mandelson together on Jeffrey Epstein's island. This exchange between Epstein and Mandelson has raised concerns about whether or not he might have committed some type of misconduct while he was in public office, over and above using the services of somebody like Jeffrey Epstein. That could carry a maximum sentence of life in prison in the UK. Sending commercially sensitive government documents to a convicted pedophile who had pled guilty to procuring a child for prostitution in 2008. Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, said on Monday that Mandelson should not be a member of the House of Lords. That is Parliament's upper chamber. They revise legislation, but he also added that the Prime Minister does not have the power to remove him. Starmer is calling on those in the House of Lords to work with the government to modernize disciplinary procedures in the House to allow for the easier removal of lords who have brought the House into disrepute, the spokesperson said. Mandelson could choose to retire from the House of Lords, but ousting him would require the government to pass legislation, which he is currently on leave of absence because he is frankly so embarrassed.
If the Labour Party feels so strongly, why didn't they kick him out? Why was it for him to decide, you know what, yeah, I'll leave of my own accord?
That's an important question to ask. They certainly didn't seem to waste any time in doing that, essentially. And it didn't really give the opportunity for that to be considered.
Yeah, he was out of there very quickly. He did not want to be kicked out. Likely they would have done that. Cyrus the Great says Elon was too overzealous in the messages, which made me think he may have been a CI. Yeah, I got that sense as well. Warrior Mima, thank you very much. Let me jump on over here to Ko-Fi and see what her message is. Let's see. She says, Zach, although you're making me relive all that I learned back in 2017 and 2018, I hate it. It's important that everyone else learns it, that we're asleep back then so they can catch up and wake up. Thank you. Thank you for the $20. And yes, absolutely correct. You know, I've said on numerous occasions, this is a difficult subject. This is not the kind of thing that people want to hear about, but it's necessary for people to understand just how deep the rot goes. And that it is all throughout the halls of power. Now, CBS News recently hired the man you see on screen. His name is Peter Attia. He is a wellness expert. He also has featured heavily in these new emails with Jeffrey Epstein. In this latest trove of emails released on Friday, Attia appears very chummy with the convicted sex offender. He is found in these emails to be making crude jokes, offering Epstein help to live longer for the ladies, and gushing about Epstein's outrageous lifestyle. He said, when I met you, the most difficult part of becoming friends with you was that I couldn't tell anyone about your outrageous lifestyle. Well, if Epstein's just a party boy who likes to hang out with girls and get laid, that's one thing. That would be no problem at all. Obviously, we know what Jeffrey Epstein's outrageous lifestyle entailed. Attia's name appears more than 1,700 times in the trove of 3 million emails, which includes many personal email exchanges with Jeffrey Epstein. In one 2015 email, Attia wrote, "The worst part about being your friend is that the life you lead is so outrageous, and yet I can't tell a soul." And then in 2016, he joked about diet with Epstein, saying that PUSSY is indeed low carb. Still waiting results on gluten, though. The individual referred to this embarrassing revelation. A spokesperson at CBS referred to the embarrassing revelation about Attia as an HR issue rather than an editorial matter, and they are expected to drop him as a correspondent in the very near future. Lee Walden says, when Biden was selected, I was thinking the world is upside down and backwards and the Twilight Zone was a reality. After all, now fall of cabal is real. Nothing can stop what is coming. Absolutely. And let me pull up that tweet from Patrick D. All right, and it looks like Nicki Minaj, please look. Chrissy Teigen got bullied off Twitter for her disgusting pedophilia-inspired tweets, saying all sorts of crazy, inhumane things. These have been circulating the internet for half a decade. Gross, she is discussing. Don't let her taunt you. Here, she is replying to Kevin Shockey, and she says, nah, he just said the cleanest and best pleasure is to have sex with a 13-year-old. Up until that. Ha, 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 ha. That's funny, Chrissy Teigen. She says, I am about to Anthony Weiner this kid. This was at the time Anthony Weiner was in trouble for sexting underage girls. Here she says, skinny pedos drink Pedialyte. I should also say the first tweet was in June of 2012. Second tweet was June of 2011. Third tweet was March of 2012. Fourth tweet, April of 2011. Water slide that goes through a shark tank. F yeah, time to get my pedo on. Here are a bunch more where she also makes reference to pizza, for anybody wondering. Chrissy Teigen says, seeing little girls do the splits half naked is just, I want to put myself in jail. Hashtag toddlers and tiaras. Here she says, I am going to jail over pizza. She also says, it always weirds me out how strong little toddlers' tummies can look, and I am aware of how absolutely disturbing that sounds. a belly and a shirt with a small, sexy toddler on it saying number one, duh. Here's another one where she says, I want pizza. Another one where she says, Brad Pitt just handed us pizza. Another one, she says, I woke up this morning with the pizza on my chest and ranch dressing all over me. So if you think I'm too good for this, you are sadly mistaken. Another one where she retweets secret naked hobo, and it says, pedophiles delight. Toddlers and tiaras star 4, Don's fake boobs and butt. Disgusting, disgusting, disgusting. Wounds Are Us says, please start encouraging people to vote each time there are elections, primaries, and generals. Yes, that should be self-evident. As I have said on so many occasions, if you don't vote, then likely somebody else is probable to vote in your place. Over the weekend, I guess there was an election in Texas. I had no idea that there was an election in Texas. And a Democrat was elected to a Senate seat in a heavily Republican district. I think that ultimately it was held in the midst of a snow and ice storm and also on a weekend because they wanted to make sure that people didn't show up. I mean, who the hell votes on a Saturday? I've never heard of anything like that. Yes, I think everybody should vote. Even if you think the election system is fake and gay, it is totally broken. But still, I want to be on record as having casted my ballot. Sabrado says she is not a she. That's right. I actually, for the first time this morning, heard that Chrissy Teigen is allegedly trans. I've never heard anything about that, and I need to do more research on that before I can speak with authority. We also have new information from Stacey Plaskett. She is, of course, the delegate for the Virgin Islands. She has gone on record before to say that she never went to Jeffrey Epstein's island. She actually testified under oath to this. And she also was texting with Jeffrey Epstein in the midst of that hearing where Democrats were questioning President Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen. Here we are, August 18th, 2014, detailing an appointment that she has with Jeffrey Epstein on Little St. James Island. In an email, Little St. James barge captain Ann Rodriguez writes that she sent Stacey Plaskett instructions to report to the St. Croix departure point and request an escort to the dock. Plaskett, of course, testified under oath and in a deposition that she had never visited the island. So then who was it that showed up and said she was Stacey Plaskett? That's interesting. Stacey Plaskett has committed perjury. Here you can see this is between Ann Rodriguez. Hey, I will do so right now. I will have to go to STC and ask one of the ladies in the office to escort her to the dock. Hi, Anna. Just want to make sure, did you send Stacey Plaskett instructions on how to get to Jeffrey Epstein's island on Monday, August 18th? She has an appointment with him at 11 a.m. on the island. Is it possible Erica Kellerhals comes as well? Trying to find out. Great. Note, Erica Kellerhals will go too. Stacey Plaskett found to be lying. All right, in our next Jeffrey Epstein expose, Jeffrey Epstein admitted in his emails that he worked for the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds paid Jeffrey Epstein $25 million for certain algorithms. You can see here, for work specifically relating to outstanding matters between Edmund de Rothschild Holding, SAEDRH, and the United States, $25 million paid. Payment shall be made by the Rothschild Group to STC by not later than 3 days after EDRH makes payment to the U.S. Jeffrey Epstein was representing them in this business transaction. You can see here in this letter from Jeffrey Epstein, to Jeffrey Epstein, Dear Jeffrey, you, on behalf of Southern Trust Company Incorporated, a Virgin Islands corporation, have been collaborating with Ariane de Rothschild on behalf of Edmund de Rothschild Holding, S.A., collectively the Rothschild Group, regarding risk analysis, Rothschild Group, and the application and use of certain algorithms with respect to the same specified matters. The purpose of this agreement is to set forth the terms upon which you, on behalf of STC, will continue to work with the Rothschild Group on specified matters. The work. STC shall provide the work as further specified and agreed to between Epstein and Ariane de Rothschild from time to time while this agreement remains in effect. Fees and expenses. In consideration for the work, Rothschild Group will pay the following to STC, that $25 million mentioned before. Payment shall be made on behalf of the Rothschild Group to STC not more than 3 days after EDRH makes payment to the U.S. The Rothschild Group shall reimburse STC for all travel and out-of-pocket expenses incurred by you, STC, or your or STC's employees, representatives, agents, and advisors in connection with the performance of work in this agreement. And, of course, it is confidential. You shall not talk about it with anyone. Jeffrey Epstein mentions in another email that he works for the Rothschilds. Denise Ann says, I hope this is not true. Patrick D says the election in Texas was a special election where a Dem had died a year and a half ago, only open to Dems. Oh, wait a second. But I heard that there was a Republican challenger. Are you sure that it was only open to Dems? That's interesting. Okay, well, we'll read this from Denise in just a moment. But first, I have another email between Ariane de Rothschild and Jeffrey Epstein, and it is a cautionary interpretation of the email. It's interesting, certainly, but it's shared by Lord Bibo, who says Ariane de Rothschild, French banker from the Rothschild family, shared with Epstein that her family supported Hitler in mass destruction to gain more power. Also asked if he got the video with the girls. Now, this is discussed, but it's not exactly as he presents it. So I'm actually going to go to the full email exchange because he only shows one page here. So in this email from Ariane de Rothschild to Jeffrey Epstein, she says, great, did you get my video with the girls? That could be something unsavory, or it could be as innocent as just a family video. We don't know. Obviously, we don't have it. But right here, Jeffrey Epstein, well, first I'm going to go to the actual email thread. All right. So Jeffrey Epstein writes to Ariane de Rothschild, I thought you'd find amusing that in a Harvard class on Hitler, they told the story of when he was so poor, he lived in a shelter for the homeless and destitute that had been financed by 3 wealthy families, the Gutmans, the Epsteins, and the Rothschilds. It turns out to be accurate. So that's what Jeffrey says. And she responds saying, whether it's a way to say that generosity is not rewarded or that the conspiracy theory still exists, it's quite pathetic. Jeffrey responds by saying, first, it turns out to be 100% true. Hitler was selling his clothes and artwork and living in a shelter funded by Jews. Epstein, Rothschild, and Gutman. No conspiracy. The Epsteins were the Vienna bankers, brought their bank on the ring, hence still Palais Epstein. Where are you? I'm in bed with your cold. She says, I know it's true, but regularly used to say the Rothschilds planned and supported Hitler in mass destruction to gain more power. So what she's actually saying is that, yes, it's true, Hitler lived in this shelter that was funded by her family and by Epstein's family. But she's saying that the conspiracy is that the Rothschilds funded Hitler specifically to create this mass destruction and gain more power. However, it's also true that the Rothschilds, as the bankers of Europe, funded both sides of many different wars to do exactly that. Now, perhaps the Rothschilds would characterize it as slightly different. And that's when Jeffrey Epstein says, I'll be there in 20 to 30. And she asks if he got the video. He says no. She says, sorry, it doesn't go through. And he asks Dropbox, and she says, sent it through MailDrop. MailDrop is a service through Apple with their iCloud email. So whatever that video is, the feds are in, they are actually holding it. But of course, as far as I know, it hasn't been released if it was something unsavory. But this is very important because the characterization of the email is not what was actually written. And, you know, when I first saw this, I was like, well, isn't that interesting? Got to look into that, make sure it's exactly what was said. However, again, it is a deeper link between the Epsteins and the Rothschilds. Now here, this one is incredibly damning. You have an email to Jeffrey Epstein, which says, I give you permission to kill him. He is apparently with Olga. He lied to you and he lied to me. And then Jeffrey Epstein responds, whoops. And then the person replies, no one will lie to you and get away with it from me. No one. Whoops is correct. Now, the very bottom of their name is visible. Didn't take much for someone to line up the letters in that name, and it appears to be a woman by the name of Susan Hamblin. She's a financial advisor and founder of the adoption agency Kids to Families. Kids to Families. I give you permission to kill him. I give you permission to kill him. That sounds to me like someone is explicitly offering the go-ahead to get rid of somebody, especially when we know everything that we know about these people. Patrick D says, Zach, you're right. They did flip a Republican seat to Dem. I had read somewhere where it was only 2 Dems running. My bad. No worries, bro. No worries. Oh yeah. We need to put up this Denise tweet where she says, I hope this is not true. What is this? Just heard that Eagle Ed Martin is out at DOJ as chief of weaponization. One of my sources is concerned about this move and how it will affect investigations moving forward, especially Fulton County. They told me that Martin was exceptionally helpful. Hopefully this isn't the beginning of the case's own self-destruction. Oh, shit. Yeah, I definitely hope that that is not true. We'll check in with Eagle Ed Martin's account here in a few minutes. All right. So continuing, open invitation for murder in this email. That's pretty crazy. We also learn through these emails that Jeffrey Epstein may have had a secret son. Sarah Ferguson, the ex-wife of Prince Andrew, congratulated Jeffrey Epstein on the birth of his baby boy. We've never known that Jeffrey Epstein had any children, but we do know that Jeffrey Epstein was hoping to create a race of supermen at his Zorro Ranch using his seed and all of these beautiful women that he had in his life. Sarah Ferguson said she heard from the Duke, which would be Prince Andrew, that Epstein had a baby boy. This email is dated September 21st of 2011. So if Jeffrey Epstein has a child, that child would be 14 years old today. She congratulated him. And this Epstein file shows that the former Duchess of York offered Jeffrey Epstein her love, friendship, and congratulations on the birth in a note sent to him in September of 2011. Jeffrey Epstein, of course, was hanging out with Andrew, Prince Andrew at that time. Now, we don't have any other information than that. But that's definitely something that I think will likely be followed up on in the very near future. All right, now this is where we get into these shocking emails which deal with Demo Dick, also known as Richard Marcinko, also ties in CIA hit squads, a former U.S. ambassador in Mexico, the impregnation of an 11-year-old girl, people being murdered for looking into child sex trafficking networks that were being run out of apparently American embassies. ZBM says, what is the connection between the Rothschilds and Israel again? Well, I mean, the Rothschilds are Jewish, and they are the most powerful banking family in the world. They also, I mean, those things are not disconnected. And this is hard to listen to. Being a mom of young boys, it turns my stomach, but thank God these demons are being exposed. Great show, Zach. Thank you, ZBM. Appreciate you. All right, so these emails that came out are like a spy novel, which is ironic because Richard Marcinko wrote a bunch of novels dealing with his time in the teams. American agents in a foreign country attacking local law enforcement, trying to disrupt an investigation. You've got threats made all the way up to the president of Mexico. You had a judge shot by an American in order to delay a trial in Mexico, this U.S. ambassador that was implicated in the whole things. And the weirdest part, Richard Marcinko, a special forces icon, being detained in an undisclosed location, and it appears that he would be the bad guy. Now, these emails involve Ken Turner. You see him as Ken T in the emails, and possibly the NYPD detective that I mentioned earlier, Walter E. Harkins. Learned that from the signature field. Harkins retired from the NYPD just days after the 2024 election after working 33 years and ending 4 generations of familial service to the NYPD. Each of these redacted email addresses is followed by NYOGA. So on July 19th of 2019, Turner sent an email to the NYOGA and disclosed the individuals he was working with in Mexico. He describes one, Jorge Gonzalez, as my friend in the Mexican federal government with a federal police phone number. He also mentions an ex-South African police officer and a psychologist named Marina and introduced her as his partner. We are all under threat from U.S. agents here, so we try to be very careful about how we talk and where, Turner wrote. He continues, when you talk to Jorge, ask him who I was referring to when I said high-powered individual who has threatened him, me, and Marina, and who spoke to the president of Mexico last week and told him he would not back off the threats towards us three. Now, remember, Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State during the Barack Obama administration. She served from January 29th, 2011 to February 1st of 2013. During that time, there was a child trafficking scandal that was reported on briefly as having taken place in Europe. I would also remind you that Dan Scavino's new wife is working within the State Department, going to embassies, consulates all over the world, and removing satanic and pedophilic art. So being that the State Department is like the forward-facing arm of the Central Intelligence Agency, many CIA agents operate out of the embassies all around the world under the guise of being diplomats. And we believe that the CIA is directly tied into these child trafficking operations. I would suggest to you that these U.S. agents that are referred to in this email here are likely directly employed by the Central Intelligence Agency. He continued, when you talk to Jorge, yes, I'm just going to read this again. When you talk to Jorge, ask him who I was referring to when I said high-powered individual who has threatened him, me and Marina, and who spoke to the president of Mexico last week and told him he would not back off the threats towards us three. They were actively being pursued and they were attempting to be scared off of the investigation that they were doing. NYOGA responded, okay, thanks, I'll be in touch. 3 days later, Turner wrote back to request a phone call. He said, Jorge is prepared to talk to you regarding Marcinko and Epstein. That would be Richard Marcinko, like, you know, the Special Forces Navy SEAL, and all the videos and photos he has. Marcinko later identified in the emails as Richard Marcinko. Now, that name might be familiar because there was Nadia Marcinko. She was the plane girl, the pilot, Jeffrey Epstein's blonde, beautiful pilot, also known as Nadia Marcinkova, currently living somewhere between New York and New Jersey, but totally staying off the radar because she was an unindicted co-conspirator from Jeffrey Epstein's first case down in Florida. So she has the same name as Richard Marcinko. Are they related? I don't know. But Richard Marcinko was the first commanding officer of SEAL Team 6. But Richard Marcinko allegedly will openly disclose what evidence he has and who some of the participants at these sex parties were, the email concluded. Then 4 days later, Turner wrote back with concern, asking, who on your team knows we are talking to you? Anyone assigned from the NSA, CIA, or U.S. State Department. Now, that particular email also claims that an American shot a judge who was presiding over Turner's child sex trafficking case, and that Jorge and Turner both have been attacked by armed individuals 4 times. My partner has shot and killed 2 and wounded 5 American agents to date. In the email, it says, we've had another serious incident since an American shot the trial judge in our child sex trafficking case here. He and I both think this latest incident is tied to the fact we have reached out to your team. Who on your team knows we are talking to you? Anyone assigned from the NSA, CIA, or U.S. State Department? Please understand people's lives are in jeopardy. We have had 4 armed attacks against us. My partner has shot and killed 2 and wounded 5 American agents to date, numerous white American agents following us in vans assigned to the U.S. Embassy. Jorge was attacked and lost an arm. The president of Mexico is keenly aware of our case against Marcinko and other U.S. officials. This case we have here is most certainly connected to yours. Of course, new NYOGA was Walter Harkins working on the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking case at that exact same time. We have proof. Our case will help bring a whole new dynamic to what you know and who is involved. Prince Philip is a small fry compared to what we have uncovered. Of course, Prince Philip at that time was the king consort of England. And this is where it gets real deep. You may want to question the ex-U.S. ambassador to Mexico, Mr. Earl Anthony Wayne, about his involvement with an underage girl when he attended and was arrested by the Mexican federal police. We believe that Marcinko and Epstein were involved in organizing this party, and it was held in Juarez, Mexico in 2014 at a U.S. consulate-controlled housing facility. Ask him how he knows Richard Marcinko. Richard Marcinko was sentenced in Mexico in 2017 to a life sentence for impregnating an 11-year-old girl. Her son's DNA actually matches Wayne's DNA 100%, but he is allowing an ex-Marine to stand in his place to serve his sentence in Mexico. That was an agreement worked out between our U.S. State Department and a judge in Mexico after a huge payoff. Mr. Anthony has an outstanding arrest warrant here in Mexico for avoiding sentencing, and then he gives his cell phone number so that he could be contacted and asked about this case. I want to confirm that the phone you will be using has been swept for malware and keyloggers. After our call, you'll understand why we are so concerned with secure comms here. Ken Turner. Now, NYOGA simply responded, my task force is not affiliated with the intelligence community if you want to arrange a call time. When Turner asks if 1 p.m. Central Standard Time tomorrow is good, the response, okay, that's good, comes in the only email to include a signature code, which includes NYPD Detective Walter E. Harkins. Then on August 5th of 2019, Turner explains to Harkins that he was rushing home after his nephew, Logan Turner, was killed in a mass shooting in Dayton, Ohio. Mass shooting in Dayton, Ohio, the nephew of the man who was investigating this case, who has also had attempts on his life down in Mexico, suddenly gets randomly shot and killed in a mass shooting in Dayton, Ohio. Turner also disclosed that another attempt was made on his partner by a U.S. Embassy security team. My nephew, Logan Turner, was shot and killed in the mass shooting in Dayton, Ohio last evening. I am rushing home to be with my immediate family. All investigative work on Marcinko and Epstein is still in process, and we have uncovered more photos and videos of the two of them together in Mexico. This is where I have to say it seems that, yes, in fact, it looks like Richard Marcinko might be the bad guy here, although, you know, I hate to have to do that. But here's the thing. Good people turn bad, and bad people can sometimes do good things. Another attempt by U.S. Embassy security team was made yesterday when they stopped my partner and searched her car looking for the videos and photos we uncovered that they told her not to leave Mexico. They were not in her car. Someone doesn't want this data disclosed. Now, in the final email in this chain on August 10th of 2019, this is after the alleged suicide of Jeffrey Epstein. He says, we just heard about Epstein. Based upon what we have discovered here, and who is involved here in Mexico, we do not believe it was a suicide. When you have 5 minutes, you need to listen to what we have as evidence. Now, on July 30th of 2019, this is when the detective for the Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Force sent an inquiry request to the FBI asking for assistance with inquiries and consulting with your Mexican law enforcement counterparts. Contacted an FBI hotline set up for the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, claiming he was some type of Mexican deputized investigator who was investigating a child sex ring in and around the Mexico City area with a Mexican law enforcement official known as, might be Jorge, who has arrested ex-U.S. Navy SEAL Richard Marcinko, date of birth 11/21/40, Turner stated that Marcinko was in the custody in Mexico City on child sex charges. Redacted claimed that Redacted has in his possession as some type of evidence DVDs depicting Jeffrey Epstein engaged in sex acts with minor females, some of whom may be U.S. citizens. Any assistance appreciated. Please call me if you need anything further. So this is how they knew what these guys were doing down there. Likely it was because of this NYPD detective reaching out to the FBI several months prior to Jeffrey Epstein being murdered in prison or being removed from the narrative. This is how they knew the investigation was in contact with this NYPD detective right here. This is the craziest thing I have seen in these files yet. I'll tell you what, man, this is a bombshell right here. This is the kind of stuff that would make an incredible movie. Now, several files were sent to Harkins almost 1 month later on August 26, 2019. The files include a file titled Richard A. Marcinko Comprehensive Report and Kenneth Durrell Turner Comprehensive Report. The last email uncovered so far and the most recent was sent from Turner on December 31st of 2019. In this email, Turner claims to have a victim who disclosed several high-powered individuals, which include the Clintons and the Bidens. As I tried to tell you a month ago, I have continued interviewing the young victim, Carla, and she has finally opened up after her guardian was attacked and beaten by U.S. agents in Chetamul. She has disclosed where she met Epstein, whose homes they visited in New York, Maryland, New Mexico, Florida, Virgin Islands, Cozumel, Playa del Carmen, and Cancun in just the last 2 years with Marcinko. So it seems like Marcinko was actually trafficking this 11-year-old girl. The names she has associated with him and these visits include the Clintons, Bidens, Wayne, the guy who used to be the ambassador, older politicians and lawyers. She has a photographic memory and is an excellent artist. She made sketches of some of these men. These U.S. agents who attacked, raped her, and her guardian are under arrest in Mexico. And I have asked her and her guardian to drop all charges against them so that all the harassing attacks stop. I don't trust these people to not harm her and her guardian due to all the past attacks. If you want to interview her, let me know and we can arrange for you to talk. Oh, New York OGA Harkins responds, okay, I'll let you know. Thanks. And that's it. That's where it ends. That's absolutely the end of it. Now let's talk about Earl Anthony Wayne. This is him right here. I used his picture on the thumbnail so that you can see who this guy is. All right. Now, this allegation, of course, is unsubstantiated. If only we could see those reports. Haven't been able to find those reports in the Epstein releases. But we know that they must exist. They must be in the possession of the federal government. And the fact that the FBI was contacted after Mr. Turner starts reaching out to this New York detective working this child trafficking task force, I mean, it all lines up. It all goes together. So Earl Anthony Wayne is a retired American diplomat. He was the U.S. ambassador from 2011, which would have been during Hillary Clinton's tenure, to 2015, and previously as U.S. ambassador to Argentina from 2006 to 2009. He reached the highest rank in the U.S. Foreign Service, career ambassador, and he currently serves as a distinguished diplomat in residence at American University's School of International Service. I would love to speak with Earl Anthony Wayne. Don't think that he would ever talk to anybody about this, though. There is no publicly available information on Kenneth Darrell Turner beyond his appearance in these Epstein files. Right now, Wayne has not commented on any of these allegations, but hopefully many different people are going to be reaching out to him, and we can force him to reply to this. Isaiah 53 says, excellent dig. We are the news now. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. All right. Now, I just wanted to give credit where credit's due. The first place that I saw this start popping up over the weekend was Colonel Towner Watkins and Bad Kitty Unleashed. Now, Colonel Towner Watkins honed in on the Marcinko stuff because she's military. Bad Kitty Unleashed honed in on the Epstein suicide information, but they're all part of the same email chain. So I just wanted to say that they had both found those emails first. Now, continuing, because the Jeffrey Epstein stuff is not done, we also have an email right here from Susan Hamblin, who is the woman who told Jeffrey Epstein he had the authority to kill somebody who lied to them. She owns an orphanage, remember. She said, I will be sending fresh muffins down with Karina. You currently have 2 steaks left on the island. Would you like new ones? Well, muffins and steaks is sounding once again to me like code for children of one type or another. We've gone over the code words that have been revealed by the FBI on so many different occasions, so I don't have time to go over those right now because I have to finish this up so that I can end for the night. We also, if you guys remember, Alex Cappy, after he died, released this video. This was his dead man switch. It's little girls in a spa, okay? It's disturbing, but it's just little girls at a spa, but they are wearing bikinis. Turns out it has now been identified as the Rios Añana Spa. This is the exact same location that Cappy video took place at. Now, the reason this place is notable is because this is where Jeffrey Epstein sent his masseurs. This is where he sent the girls to get trained when he wanted them to start giving him massages. Now, if you work for Jeffrey Epstein as a personal massage or spa therapist, this is where you went. You took an internship here. All expenses were paid by Jeffrey Epstein. There is also a reference to this place in the Epstein emails. An email from Sultan bin Sulayem, which is one of the Saudis who was part of the old Saudi regime that was cast out by Mohammed bin Salman, who is now running the place. Remember, those guys were deep state, new Saudi government not. Dear Fatah, attached is a copy of her passport. She works at our friend Jeffrey Epstein's private spa as a personal masseuse. It would be appreciated if you could arrange for her internship at Rixos Antalya Spa to gain better experience. So that Cappy video has been out, obviously, since he passed away. And I have never been able to identify where that place was. And now we finally know where it took place. It is 100% a dead ringer. Here is also a brief video that came out over the weekend, that was discovered over the weekend, of Jeffrey Epstein apparently chasing some young women, young girls. We don't know. Their entire bodies are edited out by the federal government. But you can hear the giggling of what sounds like girls. And Jeff being filmed by a girl. Jeffrey Epstein chasing these young girls around. They appear to be on the short side. And the pitch of their voice makes it sound like they are underage. It's just disturbing. Absolutely disturbing, given everything that we know. This is also really disturbing. Someone sends Jeffrey Epstein an email, Barnaby Marsh, and the subject is baby smell. And it's a couple of articles about new baby smell. And he says, bacteria on skin. I learned a lot here. Why would you send this? Except after everything we've learned about what these people are into, I think that's why. Okay? You know, most people smell a baby, and it's like this feeling of love and protection is what comes over you. Somebody like Jeffrey Epstein and his friends, it's a different feeling that comes over you. All right, here is an email between Jeffrey Epstein and a famous Hollywood publicist, Peggy Siegel. Peggy Siegel was hired by Jeffrey Epstein to help rehabilitate his image, much like he hired Steve Bannon to help rehabilitate his image. And Peggy, being one of the most powerful publicists in Hollywood, has connections to all of these other Hollywood people. She mentions a party that she's going to with Jane Fonda and Robert De Niro. I've seen people sharing it saying Robert De Niro, Jane Fonda connected to Epstein. Not quite. Not quite. They were at a party that Peggy Siegel mentioned she was going to, not that she was bringing them to Jeffrey Epstein's island or anything like that. But the subject of this email is yacht slut. Jeffrey Epstein mentions several people who are going to be at this event. Dubin, Glenn Dubin, Alan Dershowitz, Zuckerman, could be any number of them, all said yes to September 18th, Yom Kippur Redemption. Sounds like a wrestling event. I need you to oversee. And she responds, is it going to be 100% Jew night? Even Perlman on Yum Yum has some goyim. On Jane Fonda, my new best friend. Nothing like an ex-Jew hater with a Jewish boyfriend to mix it up. That is Susan saying. Epstein replies, no goyim in attendance. JP Morgan execs, brilliant wasps. Glenn Dubin says, a billionaire hedge fund manager whose wife was one of Epstein's alleged recruiters. Alan Dershowitz, of course, is Epstein's defense attorney, been accused by multiple people, but so far no proof. And then Mort Zuckerman, a billionaire media mogul who owned the New York Daily News and U.S. News and World Report. So each of these people are Jewish. They are referring to anybody who's not Jewish as goyim. And it's pretty interesting that this is the way they talk when they think nobody is listening. Now, we also have this little gem right here, where, do you guys remember before Jeffrey Epstein was actually declared dead, before it was even announced that he was dead, somebody on 4chan on August 10th, 2019, claimed to be an employee at the facility where Jeffrey Epstein was held, and he said that he witnessed weird stuff happening at the prison before Epstein's death, and now it appears he may have been identified. This man named Roberto Grijalva, who was an officer at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York, was identified as possibly being the anonymous prison employee who posted that on 4chan the day that Epstein was purportedly killed. So what he claimed was that Epstein left his cell early or late Friday evening. He was shackled and put into a medical wheelchair. And at the same time, there was an unauthorized trip van that arrived at the prison. Now, he believes that possibly Epstein was taken away in the night before the news of his death broke. Now, of course, this is a bombshell claim. I want to remind people this is the post right here. This was posted well before Jeffrey Epstein was reported dead. Not saying anything after this. Please do not try to dox me. But last night, after 4:15 count, they took him medical in a wheelchair, front cuffed, but not one triage nurse says they spoke to him. Next thing we know, a trip van shows up. We do not do releases on the weekend unless a judge ordered it. Next thing we know, he's put in a single man cell and hangs himself. Here's the thing. The trip van did not sign in, and we did not record the plate number, and a guy in a green dress military outfit was in the back of the van, according to the tower guy who let him through the gate. You guys, I am shaking right now, but I think they switched him out. Well, let me tell you, now that we know this actually did come from somebody inside the prison, I think the likelihood that Jeffrey Epstein was switched out, it becomes even more possible. And I'm sure you guys, if you've been with me long enough, you've seen me compare the face of the corpse to the face of Jeffrey Epstein, the ears, the nose, the face, the profile, everything. We did that at the time. And I think that this obviously makes it so much more likely that this possibly took place. Now, the day after Epstein's death, the U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Berman of the SDNY opened a grand jury proceeding, and guess what? He subpoenaed 4chan, he subpoenaed Apple, he subpoenaed AT&T, and he subpoenaed Citibank. Guess what he was looking for? He was looking for records, trying to determine who posted this on 4chan. He was looking to uncover Grijalva's identity after that post was made. Now, Grijalva's name is not redacted on his bank records, which are included in the SDNY subpoena response from Citibank for this 4chan post. And it ties to the same prison officer, Grijalva, whose statements were released as part of the prison's investigation into Epstein's death. I think that this is completely 100% accurate. Absolutely Incredible, fascinating, absolutely incredible. Can't believe we finally got an answer on that one. Holy shit. All right, now, finally, we also learned that back in 2016, Jeffrey Epstein was doing business with none other than Emmanuel Macron, the now president of France. Now, by 2018, it showed that Macron was asking Epstein for PR and governance advice after he became president. Now, here is that Sultan bin Salayem, the guy who was trying to get a class or excuse me, an internship set up for a woman who was going to be Jeffrey Epstein's personal masseuse. Don't know how old that woman was, but we know how Jeffrey Epstein liked them. This guy, the Sultan, he says, had lunch at the LTC Palace, had a nice conversation with the French Minister of Economy, Mr. Macron, regarding our business in France. Jeffrey says Jacques is having dinner with Macron today, so timing was perfect. Also says, this is Caroline Lang replying to Jeffrey Epstein and Jack Lang. Jeffrey Epstein says, Tom Pritzker would like a direct contact with someone in the Macron admin. Is this doable? Tom Pritzker is J.B. Pritzker's brother. Yes, I think so. I will ask my father and return to you. Then here we go. From Macron, from Jeffrey Epstein to Berge Brend, which is a message from Macron. And there is something that says your eyes only. But we believe that we need to rethink, rebuild, and invent governance and format of international institutions, commitments, and relationships between public and private stakeholders and socioeconomic instruments to better address these challenges. Which socioeconomic innovations would you support to promote more progressist future? Sounds like some WEF speak right there. All right, you guys. That's all she wrote. That's all we're doing today, because I've got to get ready for my show tonight. I want to say thank you very much to Deplorable Farmer for the can. Appreciate that. And it looks like I got every donation over there on Rumble. So just want to make sure. Yes, we are actually good. Clinton's agreed to questions in Epstein probe. Okay, well, I'm sure that they must have, because otherwise they're going to be held in contempt tomorrow. We'll go over that tomorrow. Let me just make sure that I didn't miss anything here on my phone. I don't think so. All right. Well, while I'm waiting for that to pull up, let me just remind everybody about the final sponsors of the show. My good friends over at onenessdrops.com/redpill78. Please, if you're needing some chlorine dioxide, you can pick it up right here. Chlorine dioxide water purification kits to make sure that your water is clean and safe to drink. They also have mullein extract for lung health and soursop extract for cellular regeneration. Also pure DMSO, which I have pretty much been using on a daily basis in a number of different areas because I am getting old and it really, really helps. Of course, don't forget about mypillow.com/redpill, or excuse me, use the code RP78 because you can save up to 80% off of Mike Lindell's amazing American-made products, the Giza Dream Sheets, the My Pillow 2.0, the mattress topper, the mattresses, the slippers, everything that you could get here is also going to help support Mike's run for governor of Minnesota. And my good friend Jordan over at ConsciousStrength.net, use code RP78 to save 10% off of everything that he offers there. This is where I get my Methylene Blue. Methylene Blue is a nootropic and a neuroprotective. It will help you to grow new neurons and think clearer, organize your thoughts better. This is one of the reasons that I use it. Don't forget also rncstore.com/RP78, where you can get your apricot B17 Laetrile, apricot skin oil, everything that you would want in apricot form you can get from my friends over here. So good luck. God bless. I hope to see you tonight. If I don't see you tonight, I hope to see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Try not to black pill and try not to get too depressed about all of this Epstein stuff. But it has to come out. It's the only way we're going to get justice. Peace. Please do not forget to hit that like button. Hit that like button. Hit that like button. All of the sponsors are in the description of the video. You guys are amazing. Thank you for being here. See you tonight.